poker content creators actually good at poker? I'm going to take 10 of the biggest names in poker, Rampage, Mariano, Cory Iring, Brad Owen, plus some others you might not have heard of, and I am going to rank their poker skill. This video is probably not going to make me very many friends. In fact, I may lose a couple. And you may be thinking, why is this guy qualified to rank players in poker skill? And the truth is, I'm not. But my 2 cents, the majority of poker content creators today are content creators first and poker players second. In fact, for many of them, poker is just a business expense. For me, I played full-time for over 5 years and grinded my way up from 1-2 to 100-200 with only money I actually made from playing cards. I didn't want anyone to know I was a pro. So the way I did it, way dumber if your goal is to make a lot of money, but I feel like it gives me at least a little shred of credibility when it comes to ranking poker skill. I'm going to take 10 poker content kings and watch exactly 3 of their hands. Then I'll rate each hand on a scale of 1 to 7. Why 1 to 7, you ask? Great question. Now, is 3 hands enough to judge someone's entire poker ability? Absolutely not. So take this with about 17 grains of salt. But 3 hands is enough to get a pretty good idea of how someone thinks about the game. By the end of this video, you'll see where all 10 of these players rank on my made-up list, and we'll find out if each of these guys is a content creator who plays poker or a poker player who creates content. Sometimes 3 hands is all you need to know. Let's jump in. All right, let's start with Mariano.
In the second one, I look down at ace king suited. There's 1 limp, I make it $500. Small blind calls, the limper calls, and we see top 2. It's ace king 9.
All right, so just one little quibble here. I believe the $100 straddle is on. He ISO'd to 5x over an early position limper. Obviously fine, but you know, when somebody limps from EP and we have a really strong hand, normally players from early position aren't limping to limp fold. Probably may just go a little bit bigger here, 600, 700. Minor quibble, but we will continue.
Not bad having ace king and hitting top 2 pairs. Checks to me, I bet 500. Both of my opponents make the call, and we go to the jack of hearts.
Don't really have any issues with the 500. We didn't really get much of his thought process here on the flop. I tend to kind of size up when I do have value on these dry static boards. Multi-way, I don't mind starting off with a small size, but like, we're not gonna get the guy even next to act probably to float with a hand like a 9x if we go small. So like, let's just target the ace X. Let's just target the straight draws. I think we can go a little bit bigger here on the flop. Let's continue with the turn.
On the turn. Some straights get there, but can't be too worried about monsters under the bed. So when it checks to me, I continue for 2,500, simply trying to get value from worse. Small blind calls, limper folds, and we go to the 6 of clubs on the river.
All right, so on the turn, I do like that he sized up. I think I would actually go bigger, especially when we get called next to act. That just means this guy in the small blind is going to have an ace a lot. He's probably got a lot of hands like ace 10, ace jack, which is now improved to 2 pair. I would just be sizing up here on this turn. I do think even slightly bigger than this, but so far, I mean, I just minor quibbles with this hand. It seems pretty good so far.
Small blind checks again, and I think he's probably got at least an ace at
would love to see an overbet on this river.
This point, especially since he called my turn bet with 1 guy left to act behind him.
Good.
He's probably not too weak when that happens, so I size up to $9,000.
Pretty good, but I mean, the overbet, I think we can go bigger here. I feel like when players overbet, they're like, let's go 10% over the size of the pot. Now that's a juicy overbet, is it? I like that he found the overbet though.
On the river, hoping to put him in a tough spot, but of course trying to...
Why do we want to put him in a tough spot? We don't want to put him in a tough spot. We want him to call.
And get called, and eventually that's what happens. He tosses in the money, and ace king is good.
You know, I have some minor quibbles with this one. The sizing basically on every street, I probably would have sized up a little bit pre-flop. The sizing on the flop, maybe gone a little bit bigger. Sizing on the turn a little bit bigger. Sizing on the river a little bit bigger. But overall, I'm going to give this hand a 6 out of 7. Guys, I think we're going to go to my list here. Let me kind of walk you through how I'm grading these. 7 would be like a flawless execution, right? This is perfect. 6 is excellent with a minor quibble. I would say this hand is just minor quibbles. 5 would be solid, competent play. 4 would be, you know, acceptable but flawed. Like, this is fine, I guess. 3 would be like a clear mistake with some flawed reasoning, like a significant error that a thinking player shouldn't make. 2 is going to be multiple errors. They're lost in the hand. They seem confused. They're making a bunch of blunders. And 1 would just be a massive punt. So I'm going to give this hand a 6. I did have minor quibbles, but like overall, like I said on the river, like I hope he finds an overbet. He found an overbet. Like I think he found a pretty good line here. I think a lot of worse regs in this spot would just go with the old like 2/3, 3/4 pot on the river. Mariano finds the overbet. I think he played this hand quite well. I'm going to give him a 6.
Next, there's a $600 open. One caller, and I look down at Queen 10 offsuit in the big blind. I squeeze to $3,000. Of course, you don't have to do this with a hand like this. You could just call, but
yeah, I don't love this, guys. The reason why I don't love this is because once there's an open and a call in these spots, I'm just going pure linear. And by linear, I mean good, better, best. Like, I would be squeezing hands like pocket 8s, pocket 9s. I'd be squeezing my suited Broadways, maybe Jack 10 suited plus. Queen 10 suited, I think a fine squeeze here. All my suited Broadways. The reason why I'm going linear when I'm squeezing, when there's an open and a call, is just because we're so much more likely to see a flop. What happens in these spots, guys, when we squeeze is the original opener is going to call a lot. That's going to bring in a cascade effect. The next guy is going to call. Like, it's very unlikely that we're just going to take it down pre-flop. And when it's very unlikely that we're going to take it down pre-flop, and actually pretty quite likely that we're going to go multi-way post, or at least heads up post. Like, we just want to choose good hands. If we're going to get called a lot, we just want to choose good hands. This hand does not quite fall into that, probably a couple pips below what I would actually squeeze with in this spot. So just a little nitpick here to start off this hand, the pre-flop hand selection.
Occasionally getting aggressive with these kind of holdings I think is fine. Only the original razor calls, and we go to a board of Queen 5-4 with 2 spades. I decide to check this one because my opponent in this hand is someone who bets a lot once checked to. So I take the slow route and see if he wants to hang himself a little bit.
This is pretty good. I like this, guys. You guys know I'm a pretty big fan from checking out a position, especially to players who are going to overstab. Sounds like kind of what Mariano's doing here. I like this. This seems pre-flop aside, the flop seems pretty good to me.
In 3,000, I happily make the call. Turn is the king of clubs. I check it again, and now he bets 6,000, which is around half pot. I don't necessarily hate this king on the turn, but I'm just hoping he wasn't bluffing with something like King Jack or whatever, and now gets there. I call again.
One pretty big heuristic here, I talk about this quite a bit, when they double barrel on a nut changing turn card and they choose exactly double the size of the previous street. This is just weighted pretty heavily towards bluffs. When they go double the size, they go 3,000 on the flop, and then they go 6,000 on the turn. This is just, especially when the king comes in, right? Because the Queen X doesn't keep value betting here. So if I'm in Mariano's shoes, I'm already thinking like, well, this seems a little bit fishy. Like, what is he value betting here on this turn? Usually if they do have a hand like pocket 5s or pocket 4s or a hand like king queen, they size up either on the flop or on the turn or on both streets here.
6 of spades on the river. Really not the best card. Some straights get there. Of course, the flush gets there as well. And now I check, he throws in $16,000. This is similar to the first hand where I had pocket aces. People just don't bluff the river very often. And even if he was bluffing previously, like I said, a lot of stuff gets there now. So I think it over for a little bit. And I think with no spade in my hand, we just have to let this one go.
I don't mind the full, everything before he said with no spade in my hand, I have to let this one go. I don't think this is really relevant. I just think it's maybe like the 14th most important thing we should be considering here, if we have a spade in our hand or not. Let's think about the player we're playing against a little bit more. I don't think the spade in the hand is, whether we have one or not, is really all that relevant, guys. I just not a fan of the blockers as a crutch here. But I do agree with everything Mariano said up to that point. The 6-7 makes a pair in general. I feel like players don't really bluff with showdown value or what they perceive to be showdown value when they make third pair on the river. The 7-8, if he did have a gut shot, that gets there. Obviously the front door flush gets there. Now he does size up on the river going 2/3 pot. So I think the fold on this river is quite reasonable. If I was going to nitpick, it would be the pre-flop hand selection, and it would be with some of these blocker thoughts on the river coming in. But in this spot, I'd be going through my bluff catching checklist, and my bluff catching checklist, really, really simple. Is this player capable? Is this size significant for the game? Do they have non-showdown value hands, right? And I think these questions are a little bit more pointed, and I think maybe a slightly better process in my own biased opinion here, but we'd probably come to a similar decision on this river. I don't mind the fold on this particular river.
Could also call, but you know, we're only beating complete airballs. I just don't expect to see that super often. So I fold, and he shows me pocket 7s. Another incorrect decision on my part, and another hand I did not expect to see.
I still feel pretty good about this fold. Like when they show you, the reason why they show you is because they are under bluffing. Like the guys who are just redlining aren't going to show you the bluff because they want you to fold the next 10 times. The guys who show you are the guys who are massively under bluffing because they want you to call the next 10 times because they're going to have it the next 10 times. So I don't mind the fold on this river. I'm going to give this one pip down. I'm going to give this a 5. 5 would be solid, competent play, right line, reasonable sizing. I just thought there was a small gap between the pre-flop squeeze and maybe the thought process on the river. I like that we came to probably the same decision, just a couple minor quibbles with how he got there.
There's a late position open to 500, one caller, and I look down at 6-4 of clubs. This is very similar to the previous hand where I think this hand functions nicely as a squeeze.
I don't think this hand functions nicely as a squeeze.
So that's what I do here. I make it 3,500. The initial raiser calls, but the other player folds. So we go to a flop of 10-7-3 with 2 diamonds. Generally going to favor the caller more than me, so
I don't really give a shit who it favors. The questions I'm asking is, where does this player make more mistakes? So they make more mistakes versus a check, or they make more mistakes versus a bet. And that's how. And then also what are my hand's incentives? Can my hand check call a bet? Does my hand just want to bear? These are the questions I'm generally asking in this spot, rather than thinking about whose range the board favors, when most likely the player we're playing against in this situation can't spell range, right? If we're playing against a strong reg, okay, sure, we can take those things into account. That is completely reasonable. But against 90-something% of players, it doesn't even enter the back of my mind.
I decide to check, even though I have 6 high. I just think this is the better play. I'm not giving up at all just yet, but starting with a check on the flop, my opponent checks back and we see a nice turn card. It's the ace of clubs, giving me a combo draw. We now have clubs and a straight draw working in our favor. So I throw in 5,000, around 2/3 of the pot size.
I don't love this size. I think it is a little bit of that in-between size here. And I think we want to have a goal, what are we trying to accomplish with our hand here? I'd be thinking about this goal through the lens of, what do I want to accomplish for the rest of the hand? If my opponent flips over a hand like ace jack or something like that here on the turn, is that a hand we can get to fold by double barreling? I don't know. Some players will fold it, some players won't, depends how deep we are, etc. But I want to start putting together a plan. If we're against a guy that I think is going to lay down a hand like ace jack by the river, if we apply a ton of pressure, well, I'm going with a massive overbet. Maybe 2x pot here on this turn, and then 3x pot on the river, provided we don't get there. Now, if I think my opponent is not going to be the type of guy to fold a hand like ace jack or ace 9 suited or something like that, well, then my only plan here is, on this turn, can we fold out anything that's worse than ace x, right? Can we fold out hands like 7x or pocket 6s or pocket 5s or pocket 8s, these type of hands that check back on the flop? So I just want to choose the size that's going to get that stuff to fold. So it's not necessarily that I hate the size so much, it's just these are the things I would be considering, and maybe to Mariano's credit, he is thinking about these things and he just doesn't want to give all this away, or he thinks it would be boring for his viewers, but I can only grade him on what I have to go off of here, and I'm just letting you guys know this is how I would be thinking about the spot.
And now something weird happens where my opponent raises to 12K. I'm not sure what that's about. I feel like this board is now better for me than for her.
This doesn't matter. The check back on the flop and the raise on the turn generally going to be under bluffed. Now, I haven't seen the results of this hand yet, and I do think this line is under bluffed, but there's a little part of me, the small raise here, the kind of click back, almost feels like, hey, I'm trying to get to showdown so I don't have to face a river bet. Now, I'm not sure players would do that with hands like ace jack or ace 9 or something like that because they're afraid of ace king, particularly in a 3-bet pot. So it doesn't really feel like ace x. I do think if a player had a hand like ace 3 or ace 7, they'd probably choose a bigger size. If they had ace 10, they would probably just bet the flop at a high frequency. So this one doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Maybe it does feel like some type of backdoor flush draw, or maybe just air or something. I don't really know. It kind of feels a little bit full of shit to me, but let's continue on.
But I guess my decision is pretty simple, because if we hit a 5 or a club, we can win a big pot. So I toss in the money and we get there on the river. It's the 8 of clubs giving me a very disguised backdoor flush.
I would love to see a lead here. I would love to see a lead because generally when we see this this small raise on the turn, I'm expecting, like, even if players did have like some airball that they tried to go with on the turn, I expect this to get checked back quite a lot. I would just love to see a donk here. And if this player does have a hand like ace-3 or something like that, even though I think it's less likely with the size they chose on the turn, like, I just want to make sure we get all the money, because I do think a hand like ace-7 or ace-3, although a little bit unlikely with the size they chose on the turn, does just check back quite a bit from a recreational player here on this river. And if they do have a bluff, I think they give up. If they've got a higher flush, whatever, we get coolered. Like, I would love to see a lead here.
My opponent has around 36,000 left at this point, and I'm assuming that she raised the turn with some sort of 2-pair, maybe a set, maybe a hand like ace-queen, and I want to put her in a tough spot.
We don't want to put her in a tough spot. We want to get a call.
Certainly don't want her to just check back. It's kind of tricky playing made hands out of position, but I'm just going to shove all in and hope for the best.
I like this a lot. I think this is good. This is creative.
So that's what I do, and we get snap called. That's probably not the best sign, and sure enough, she turns over Queen Jack of clubs. Brutal cooler, both of us getting there with the backdoor flush. And yeah, a little bit of run bad here, losing a 6-figure pot.
All right, so this hand I'm going to give a 5 as well. I was torn between like a 4 and a 5, but I think I'm going to give a solid, competent play here. I do think the donk on the river, very, very good. I do think that was astute. I don't like the squeeze. Some of the reasoning on like why he checked on the flop. I like the check on the flop. I just didn't love the reasoning. Didn't necessarily love the thought process on the turn. I really love the thought process here on the river, and I don't think there was anything egregious about this hand though. So I'm going to give this a 5. That's 3 hands from Mariano, and I believe he is at let's look. He is at a 16 overall, and he's going to go into first place on our leaderboard because he's the only player we've reviewed so far. Let's move on. Next, we will do Brad Owen.
Next, we look down at King 4 suited in the small blind. A player in middle position limps in for 50. We don't often see open limps in high-stakes cash games, especially when it's from someone who's not in the small blind. I call for 25 more. The big blind checks his option. 3 of us are seeing the flop. The flop comes ace queen 6 rainbow. We've got none of it except backdoor draws. I check, the big blind checks, the middle position player checks as well. I doubt anybody has much. The turn is the deuce of diamonds, giving us a flush draw. Maybe we can take down the pot with a single wager, given how quickly everyone checked the previous street. I bet 200. It's a pot-sized bet.
Everything seems okay up to this point. I would at least like to consider a check raise here on this turn. The reason why I like to consider a check raise is I do think players check back some weak ace-x on these static dry boards, and the best way to apply max fold equity to ace-x or queen-x holdings on this turn is to go for the check raise and then the big boy bet on the river. Just apply max pressure. We just come out and go bet. The reason why they check back ace-x on the flop is just to go call. So we'd at least like to see that considered here, and if we do come out and bet, we'd like to choose a pretty big overbet size here, chunky overbet, maybe like 500, 600, but I think I would go for the check raise here on this turn. If this turn checks through, we just get to realize our equity for free, which isn't the worst thing in the world.
Big blind isn't letting go. He calls, the middle position player folds, we're down to heads up, and we're going diamond mining. The river's the 3 of clubs. We don't hit the diamond we were looking for. We've at least got removal to the nuts though. I still don't see how the big blind is going to have much in a limped pot on a board with 2 Broadway cards. Our king high might even be the best hand if we're up.
I don't know about that. I mean, I do think the big blind can have ace-x here, right? Checking back on the fly. I do think he can have like ace-7 or something like that. I think that is quite reasonable.
Up against the worst diamond draw that missed. I bet 600 anyway to make sure that we fold nearly all 1-pair hands.
I don't think this is going to fold an ace. Maybe it folds a queen. I would like to see a little more attention paid to ranging here.
The big blind won't give in. He raises to 2,000. I didn't think there was any possibility of us getting raised, so I'm completely caught off guard.
This just feels like ace-3. Like, it feels like specifically ace-3 to me, or possibly ace-deuce as well that just called on the turn. Like, it feels a lot like ace-3.
I'm trying to figure out what the big blind's representing, and the math just isn't mathing. This is a limped pot, so there's almost no way that he's going to have pocket aces or pocket queens.
Yes, okay. Well, let's think about what he can have.
I played with this opponent quite a bit, and I doubt he would have checked his option with ace-queen pre-flop either.
No.
I also think the big blind would have bet flop if he had a set of 6s or some other flop 2-pair combo.
Sure,
so
but he could river the 2-pair, Brad.
Most of the set combos and good 2-pair hands.
Yeah,
what is he raising us with?
Ace-deuce. Ace-3.
It's not a bluff. Is he trying to represent a straight? I don't see how he could.
I don't think he's representing shit. I think he has ace-3.
Possibly called a pot-sized bet on the turn with 5-4, which would have been a gut
If this guy doesn't have ace-3, I'm going to feel really stupid.
shot straight draw, unless he had exactly 5-4 diamonds, which we know he doesn't have since we're holding the 4 of diamonds. Is the opponent bluffing with 5-3 of diamonds? The problem for us is that we don't beat 5-3, or some of the other combos that the opponent might have decided to
We're just too zoomed in the weeds here. Let's consider the value that he can have.
turn into a bluff. We're the only ones that can realistically have the straight in this spot, and we've got removal to it, so I'm not folding. I announce a re-raise of 5,000.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
The big blind is going to have to dig deep to find a call when his range is capped. The best hand I
How is his range
envision him having is some kind of 2 pair that he was going for thin value with, but even that seems unlikely. We get a terrific view of my hand as I slide the last stack of black chips in. The big blind ultimately calls. I show that I was bluffing. The big blind shows that he turned a set of deuces.
No, that makes sense too. This hand, I'm gonna give this one a 2. Multiple airs, a little bit lost in the hand. He seems a little confused about what he's trying to accomplish or what's going on. Like, even if the guy does have 2 pair on the river, which he discounted right away, I'm not really sure why. Raising 2.5x for the jam on the river, I don't think it's gonna get 2 pair to fold, right? We're gonna have to make the raise. We're gonna need to be deeper than that to accomplish what we want to accomplish on this river if we're trying to get 2 pair to fold. I think a little bit too zoomed in on, oh, he's bluffing and I'm gonna re-bluff him. Just getting real fancy on this river. I'm gonna give this one a 2. Don't love it.
Couple orbits later, we're dealt King 8 suited in small blind after adding on for 5,000 more. I'm in for 15,000 total. It's difficult to have the previous hand erased from my memory without a neuralizer from the Men in Black movies, especially since this pot doesn't get raised in front of us, and we're going to be squaring up against the opponent on our left once again from the worst position. I call the 50, the big blind checks his option, we're heads up, the flop comes.
Just wondering what his pre-flop strategy is, if he's just limping his range in the small blind. If it's a time game, just limping range in the small blind seems okay, like limping his continue range, having a couple folds obviously, then having some limp calls, having some limp raises, having a couple limp folds. That's probably my strategy. Not sure if that's his, but a lot of players, what they do is they'll just raise their strong hands and limp everything else, or like they'll limp raise top of range, but like they'll raise all their mostly good stuff, and then so their limping range is mostly just garbage. Like, just make sure we're not doing that.
King 9-4 with 2 spades. We've got top pair. I've already gotten caught bluffing my muffin. It's time to capitalize on my image as the guy who doesn't have it. I bet 100 for value, anticipating that we might get called lighter than usual. The big blind grabs a blackbird singing in the dead of night. He calls. Top pair should be the best, but then again, this exact opponent trapped me by only flatting my bet in the other hand with a set of deuces. The turn is the king of clubs, giving us trips and adding another flush draw to the board. Having another king come out is great because it should make it less likely in the opponent's mind that we flop top pair. I'm not slowing down. I bet 300.
I think this sizing is a little bit lazy. I like all of the options better than this size, I think. Overbet, I think, is pretty good here. Maybe going like the biggest size our opponent's going to call with spades, maybe something like 600 here, something like that. I think checking is reasonable to give our opponent a chance to just start blasting at this, because they're probably going to be, they have a very wide range from the big blind and probably a very wide range just continuing on this flop. So I think checking here also reasonable, especially if our opponent's spazzy. I don't like this like middling size. I just don't really know what it accomplishes. Like, what hand is calling 300 that's not calling 500 here, right? So I would just like sizing up.
Big blind might mistakenly feel more comfortable about his combo. He calls quickly, like he doesn't believe me, and he has absolutely no reason not to trust me, other than the fact that I 3-bet bluffed him for $5,000 a few minutes ago with king high. But other than that, I've been a pretty straight up dude with him. Except also in previous sessions, I've attempted massive bluffs against him. The river's the 7 of hearts, the front door and back door.
Would love to see like 2x pot on this river. Like 9x is never folding here. Everything bricked. You just got caught bluff. Like, would love to see 1800 on this river.
Flush draws miss. We've gotten a great run out to get the win. I bet 900, but the opponent folds without giving it much thought.
I mean, he found a big bet on this river. He found a big bet. All right, guys, I'm gonna give this one a 5. Solid, competent play, right line, reasonable sizing. I quibble with the turn sizing. I quibble with the river sizing. I think he's in the right general direction. Big on the turn, big on the river, but I think he can probably go twice the size on each street. I give this one a 5. I think it's reasonable overall.
10 minutes later, we're dealt ace-king suited in middle position. It's the first hand of the stand-up game. Under the gun limps in for 50. Under the gun +1 limps in. Under the gun +2 is the opponent on our right. He raises to 300. We've got a premium. We don't want to see a flop while facing 3 or more opponents. I 3-bet to 1,000 to narrow down the field.
First hand of stand-up game and someone ISOs over 2 limpers. We got a monster hand. I think we could just go bigger, right? I think we can probably just go like 5x here. We could probably just go like 1500. No one's going to believe us. It's the first hand of the stand-up game. You're going to get called lighter. One of the best ways to take advantage of these side games where there's like an incentive. People aren't going to believe you. You pick up a good hand, just go massive. Like no one's going to believe you.
Some people might think that we're taking an aggressive line as a bluff only to avoid losing the stand-up game.
There we go.
That's what makes this such a great setup for us since we've actually got a real hand. The opponent on our left, who's this session's main nemesis so far, cold calls 1,000. He must suspect that I'm re-raising light. He obviously knows that I'm capable of making moves, and he's inserting himself into the mix while he has position on me. Him and I have more history than Ross Geller and Rachel Green. The limpers don't want to get caught in the crossfire. Under the gun.
Does this mean they've smooched? Has Brad smooched the player on his left?
Unfolds. Under the gun +1 also folds. The initial pre-flop raiser calls for 700 more to close the action. 3 of us are seeing a flop. There's several thousand already in the middle. The dealer puts out ace 7-6 with 2 spades. It's a good one for us. Under the gun +2 checks. We've got top and likely the best hand, but we're not holding a spade. We need to bet for value and protection. I slide in a bet of 2,000. With multiple players calling a 3-bet pre-flop, our stack to pot ratio is low. If we're up against a set, I'm just going to get stacked.
One thing I'd like to think about here is like, do we want to play a 2-street game or a 3-street game? I'd be kind of planning that right here, right now on this flop.
The opponent on our left has seen all kinds of tricks from us. He calls and seemingly has no fear that we might have ace-king or better. He probably has ace-king himself, or maybe ace-queen. Under the gun +2 isn't quite sure how to proceed. He takes about 30 seconds before he eventually folds. It's down to heads up. I'd like to see a low, non-spade card come out. Instead, the dealer puts out the 3 of spades. He got the low.
I think this doesn't really matter. This is kind of irrelevant. The guy cold called a 3-bet pre-flop. He's just not going to have flushes here. I think he's just got an ace all the time. I don't know how much he has left, but if he has less than a pot-sized bet, I'd probably just put the money in here.
But the flush draw gets there. I've got 6,075 in my stack. There's over 7,000 in the middle. If we're going to continue putting money in the pot, ripping it is the only option. But is 1 pair good enough when we're losing to sets, 2 pair, and now flushes? There are a couple things to consider. The first is that this is a 3-bet pot and the ace of spades is accounted for, meaning the opponent would have had to have cold called our $1,000 3-bet pre-flop with something like king-queen suited.
Right.
And the likelihood of him having that exact combo is pretty slim, so I'm not nearly as concerned about the flush as I would be if the ace and 6 switch suits. Additionally, I don't think the opponent would have cold called our 3-bet with low pocket pairs that improved to a set or bad aces that had made 2 pair. The opponent also didn't raise on the flop like he might have if he had a monster at that point. With all this in mind, our ace-king is essentially the nuts. What I'm most worried about is that the opponent has a hand like ace-king offsuit or ace-queen offsuit with 1 spade and still has a ton of outs. Either way, it's time to rip it for value.
Should be 6,090 or 75.
We don't get snap called, so it's clear we're not up against 2 pair or better. We must be up against another top pair combo. Generally, I imagine this opponent would have put in a cold 4-bet pre-flop with ace-king, so it seems more likely that we're up against some sort of ace-queen combo. The opponent's trying to think about what we could have and whether or not he could be good. Surely, he has to have the $5,000 re-raise that I made with king high in the back of his mind.
I don't know if this is relevant.
Or maybe it's made its way to the front of his mind. We're playing nearly a $20,000 all-in pot with only a pair. You can hear it just from the way that I'm breathing, that I'm nervous, and with good reason. This is the biggest pot that I've played so far this year. I think we've got the lead, but the deck is filled with bad cards that could come out, including any spade or presumably a queen. The river's the queen of spades. It's the worst card in the deck. We lose to any combo containing a spade, and we also lose to ace-queen, which is the most likely top pair holding that we're up against. But the opponent reveals ace-jack offsuit with the jack of clubs.
I'm gonna give this one a 6, guys. I thought this was pretty decent. I thought his thought process in this hand was pretty good. I like that he played a 2-street game. I like the big size on the flop so you get all the money. And only minor quibble here, the sizing pre-flop would have sized up quite a bit here. So Brad, overall, is at a 13. So he's gonna be 2nd place on our board. All right, next up is Wolfgang.
The first hand comes to us in the form of a 4-way pot. Pasta opens it up to $200, and 3 of us put in the call. The flop comes Jack 9-4 rainbow, and I have the open-ended straight draw. Sean with the cowboy hat, I played with him before at table 1 at the Aria. He fires out now for $400, and Paulie G, the organizer of this Stacks stream, puts in the call. I think Paulie G is pretty capped here. I don't think he's doing this with pocket 4s or even...
Huh? The dude called next to act multi-way. He could certainly have pocket 4s. When someone calls next to act in a multi-way pot, they are uncapped. They are not capped. I don't know, did a guy fold in between? Even if he's second to act here and he's got 1 player left behind, when someone calls in a multi-way pot with players left behind, like they are uncapped. This guy is not capped, right? This guy is not capped.
Even pocket 9, so let's go for a raise here with our open-ended straight draw, try to get Sean to fold, and then hopefully Paulie G will follow. Well, step 1 is complete. We get the first player to fold, but Paul puts in the call. Off the turn we go, which
Out of alarm bells going off here, I think this is just going to be a pretty strong range. He called with a player left to act behind him. I mean, it could be a jack, but I wouldn't rule out a hand like pocket 4s or jack 9 suited necessarily yet.
Comes the 3 of spades, and he checks it over to me. If I'm going to be check raising the flop and bricking on the turn, I have to continue.
You don't have to do shit.
And a little bit of table talk ensues.
No, that's important. That's what we want.
In honor of the great British rapper.
How creative is that?
I mean, you're being a savage right now, or 21?
We're gonna see if you have an invite to this baseball game after this hand or not.
Oh, shit. All right. You're threatening me.
I fire out for $2,100 in honor of 21 Savage, and Paulie G is not amused. He puts in the call once again, and the river pairs the board.
This is a horrible card to bluff. Obviously, he probably doesn't have pocket 4s at this point, but this is a really bad card to bluff because now at this point, I just don't think a jack is folding, particularly when I believe the SPR is slightly less than 1. I can't tell because the stack sizes haven't adjusted, but I think the SPR is less than 1. Like, if this guy flipped over a jack on the river, if he flipped over jack 10 or something like that, and you put a musket to my head and said, Mark, get this guy to fold jack 10, I would say, no thank you, unless you give me an SPR of like 3 here on this river. And I think the SPR is less than 1. So I would probably not be emptying the clip here. Let's see what old Wolfgang does.
Coming the 4 of diamonds, and once again, he checks it over to me. Well, there's $8,400 in the middle. He has around $7,500 in his
Yeah, SPR less than 1.
stack. I obviously have him covered with my massive $20,000 stack.
It's massive. It's a mass. Look at that stack. Look at it. Would you just look at it?
Guys, I came to play today, and of course, I'm gonna have to put it all on the table here, and I go for a very strong Cinco de Mayo bet, $5,500.
He's gonna have to put it all on the table, but he leaves 2,500 behind. What does this size accomplish? What are we trying to accomplish with this size? If we think about Paulie G's range on this river, it's going to be bifurcated. That's my word, bifurcated. Good word is bifurcated. His range is going to be very bifurcated here, right? It's either going to be like top pair that probably isn't folding to any size because we only got 7,500 behind, or it's going to be a hand like Queen 10 or the same hand as us that would probably fold if we just breathe on this pot. So I don't think Jack X is folding. I mean, I think the 2 options here on this river, the 3 options really, the realistic options are to jam, and if we think Jack X ever folds, which I don't think it will, to go very small, maybe 1/3 pot, quarter pot, to try to just get Queen 10 or something like that to fold, which is reasonable, or just check back and give up. Going 55,000 or 5,500, whatever you choose, like, I don't understand this. I don't know what this accomplishes, except Jack X calls 100% of the time and we save 2 grand, I guess. I don't know what we're folding for 5,000 that we couldn't fold for 2,000. The logic isn't really logicking.
And we get snap called. Obviously, my heart is in my stomach. I thought because that was essentially his entire stack, he would think about it for a little bit longer.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna give this hand a 1. Guys, this is a 1. This is the first punt we've seen. A 1 for me is like everything is wrong and there's just no coherent reason to explain anything. The sizing doesn't make sense. The thought process doesn't make sense. This one is a 1 for me. If you guys are like any of these players and you're like, oh my God, like I'm not ranging all the time. I'm not asking these questions in every spot. It's not your fault because that's not what most poker training teaches. And think about this, right? Like if you're an NBA player, you don't go on YouTube to learn how to work on your step back 3 to watch James Harden do step back 3s. No, you get in the gym and you practice, right? You scrimmage. You're in the gym doing 3-on-3, 5-on-5. You're working on it in practice situations. The practice situation is going to be almost as intense as the game situation. So when you get in the game, like, you've been working on this, right? The same thing with poker. The passive training is not going to be what gets you to the level of James Harden. I don't know why we're talking about James Harden, but if you feel like you want practice that's actually going to apply when you're in the game, that's what we work on in our 5-day base camp. We're going to hold your feet to the fire and help you build a repeatable thought process, make the practice harder than the actual play. So next time you go sit down, you feel more confident, you feel sharp, you're asking the right questions when you sit down at the table. If any of that is at all appealing to you, check out our 5-day base camp.
Well, things can turn on a dime. And speaking of which, we are in another hand here with Ace-King offsuit from the small blind. Rampage opens it up to $300, and there's a smile on my face because
Now we got Rampage here. We're going to cover some hands from Rampage in just a little bit.
I'm going to be 3-betting my good buddy here to $1,200. We could potentially play a $60,000 pot here, but unfortunately that is not the flop I was hoping to see. 6-5 deuce with 2 clubs, and I'm going to start with a check.
A lot of thoughts about what we want to see or what we would like to happen. Not many thoughts on what our opponent's range is and what our plan is.
Ethan bets out for $800, and I could be folding here, but with the king of clubs in my hand, I decide to float him. And good news for us, we bank the ace of clubs on the turn. That is just the dream card. Now we have top pair. We have the
Again, lots of thoughts about what our hand is and what changed on the board. Not many thoughts about our plan or Rampage's hand.
nut flush draw to go along with it. And Ethan is blasting. And if you guys watch any of his videos, you know when he starts blasting, he is definitely not going to stop. And this time on the turn, he fires out for $2,500. I debate going for a raise here, but just in case he already made a flush or a straight or a set, I decide just to call here, hoping to spike the coveted club on the river, but it's not. It's the 7 of hearts. Let's think for a second. What does this improve him to? The only hand that improves that I can put him on here is maybe like 8, 9 of diamonds. When I check it over to him and he doesn't snap check back, I'm starting to get
So this is a mistake we see a lot of recreational players make. Here comes this card, what can I put him on? Instead, what we see top players do is they're able to carry that thread all the way through. And what I mean by carry that thread is we're ranging on every streak, right? What is his range when he opens and then calls our 3-bet? What is his range when we check and then he bets on the flop? So right, we've got his range narrowed on each street and we just carry that thread from street to street to street. We don't have to start from scratch on the river. Oh, what does the 7 of hearts improve his range? No, we've been doing this the whole hand.
a little bit nervous. There's $9,300 in the middle, and now Ethan fires out for a pot-sized bet, $9,000.
This is just under bluffed, I would say, even from Rampage. The reason why I think it's under bluffed is like, what does it look like Wolfgang has when he 3-bets and then check calls the flop and check calls the turn, right? It just looks like he has a hand like ace king or ace queen. And ace high boards under bluffed, 3-bet pot triple barrels under bluffed. This is just an under bluff spot. It's hard to find the bluffs here when all the draws get there. The one hand that doesn't get there is a hand like 7-8 suited, which now is second pair. And mostly, I mean, you guys have heard me talk about players just don't really turn hands like second pair into a bluff, even though I don't really think it does have showdown value here. So, I mean, like, where are the bluffs really coming from? And also, like, Rampage isn't a aware player. He knows. It just seems like Wolfgang has ace X. And is he trying to bluff ace X on this river for a pot-sized bet? Probably not. This just feels under bluff to me. It feels like he's getting a little bit greedy and hoping that Wolfgang has a hand like ace king, ace queen, ace jack. This spot, to me, that's what I would be thinking about, at least in Wolfgang's shoes.
You guys know Rampage from his videos, but I also know him when we're not filming and playing cards.
That seems relevant.
I usually have the better of him in big pots, as seen
Trust me, guys, when you guys aren't watching, I win all the time.
on the No Gamble, No Future, where I won, at the time, the biggest pot of my life when I had a boat and he bluffed into me. But
guys, back in 2004, I won a $167,000 pot. It was the biggest pot anybody had ever seen. My grandma called me and she congratulated. She said, "Mark, I can't believe you did so good. It's amazing how good you did."
sometimes he just likes to go for it against me. I don't know what it is. Maybe he thinks I'm scared money, but usually when I'm looking back and reviewing hands against Ethan, he hardly ever has it, and he likes to put a lot of pressure, so that's definitely going through my mind here. There's a lot of hands that beat me, but having the king of clubs is important because I'm blocking him from having the nut flush. Still,
Yes, very important. That is a thought that is important.
there's a lot of sets, 2 pairs, and of course the flop straight. At the end of the day, it's Ethan, and for the reasons I mentioned, I decided to put in the call here.
I haven't seen this hand. If this is a bluff, I'm gonna look really silly.
Here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Card straight.
Oh no.
The 3, 4 of spades. He just flops the straight. How good does he run? And just like that.
How good does he run? What are we gonna give this one, guys? I'm gonna give this one a 2. I'm not gonna give it a 1. I don't think it's a complete punt, but I'm gonna give it a 2. It's just like he's just generally confused. He's a little bit confused. This is kind of like watching a ballerina enter a powerlifting competition. That's kind of what I feel like right here.
All right, pocket aces. Pauly G opens it up to 400, and let's trap him and try to get some of my money back from him that he stole from me earlier.
Let's not put in money against the guy that caught me bluffing, because this way we will win more money.
Put in the call for $400, and Sean puts in the call as well. Unfortunately for us, we don't get the chance to spring the trap. We're going multi-way to a flop here, and it comes king 7-4 with 2 clubs. There's some sets and 2 pairs available. Additionally, there's the flush draw out there, but having the ace of clubs is very important.
Is it?
So when Sean bets out for $1,000, I decide to go for a raise to $2,700, and he puts in the call.
Recreational players tend to size their check raise sizings by the strength of their hand. When they have like a strong top pair or an overpair here, they go for this small check raise. When they have a very strong hand like 7s and 4s, they go for the big check raise. I'm not even grading the thought process anymore. I'm just giving you the heuristics.
The turn comes a 7 of hearts, and I fire out for $3,000, and he calls once again. The river's a brick, and now I'm gonna go for a nice size bet of $9,000. Putting him in a tough spot. Let's see what he has.
There's just no consideration of what is my opponent's range and what am I trying to accomplish. It's just, we have aces, we have good hand, we put money in pot, push chips into middle, gamble, gamble, fun, fun, fun. Which, hey man, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Maybe I'm being a little too, no, I'm not.
Jack King off. How's he ever gonna fold here when the clubs brick off? And I just called the $400 pre-flop. I really am never doing that with Ace King or King Queen, but somehow he finds the fold. He gives me respect, and I'm taking down near.
Is this respect? I think Sean made a disrespectful fold. Sean is essentially saying, listen, man, you don't have the cajones to bluff in this spot, young man. You don't have the cajones. This is not respect. This is disrespect from Sean. All right, I'm gonna give this one a 2. Again, I think massive mistake. Obviously, the trying to trap with aces, particularly like when we don't have good reason. Like there are times when we can trap with aces, right? When there's a bunch of spazzy 3-betters behind us, right? When the stand-up game is on and someone's gonna squeeze light, right? Good times to trap with aces. When a guy opens who we just bluffed it off to a few orbits ago, who isn't gonna believe us, so we want to trap to win more money. It's just like the thought process is not coherent. Overall, Wolfgang, we're going to give him a 5 overall on those 3 hands. So he's going to be in 3rd place so far on the board. All right, next up is Lee Betts. Was recommended to his content from a couple players in the Hungry Horse community. So decided to check him out and review a few hands that he played.
We are back in the mix for 3,000 bangers. In this very first hand, I'm in the low jack with 69 suited, dinner for 2. Let's buff it up. I make it 30, and then the action gets to Karl Marx, our good mate in the small blind, who unsurprisingly 3-bets us to 100. Now obviously we have a hand here we probably shouldn't have played pre-flop, but now that we're getting a good price to close the action and play in position, I'm not bloody folding at 3,000 effective. I throw in the call. So we're
I like his thought process. I like that he recognizes too wide. It is just too wide from the low jack, but to this 3-bet size, almost 300 big blinds deep. I'm assuming the other player is also deep. I don't know, but a 3x size in position, super deep. I think we could continue, but I probably just wouldn't be opening this one.
It's up to a flop of ace 10-5 with 2 spades. We do have the flush draw. When the small blind checks it over to me, I think it's worthwhile putting in a bit of a stab here. Just if the opponent has pocket kings through pocket jacks, they're going to hate the ace on the board, and they probably won't fold to 1-bet, but maybe in over continued barrels they will.
I like this thinking. We don't need to get the kings through jacks to fold right now. We can give them to call, and then we can give them to fold later. This is good thinking.
Start off with a small bet of 70, and then Karl Marx doesn't like this. He check raises to 250. Definitely not ideal. I do think it is much more likely they have a hand like ace king now. I think getting to continue to play the pot in position with a high equity draw, we can't be folding just yet, so I do throw in the call, and then we're heads up to a turn, which is the queen of spades, baby. Let's go. We get there with our flush draw. You love to see it. And when the small blind checks it over to me, I think we don't want to get too greedy in this spot. I mean, if he has ace king with a spade, that might be one hand that will call a large bet, or if he has has ace queen, but I think most of the time it's going to be ace king without a spade, and we can get too greedy with a large bet size here. So I decided to size it down to
I don't love this here. So far, I was very much on board, but I just think there's a ton of hands that are inelastic here. Pocket aces, a hand he didn't mention. He mentioned ace king with a spade, like ace king with the ace of spades, ace king with the king of spades, ace queen. Obviously makes a ton of sense here as well. Pocket tens even makes some sense here as well. Not sure this particular player three. I don't know this player, but like these are some of the hands I've been thinking about. Like when a player check raises on the flop is the pre-flop raiser and then checks the turn when the flush comes in. Like they have a hand they really, really like, but now they're terrified. But it doesn't mean they're gonna fold, right? Like if this guy flipped over a hand like ace king, we put a musket to my head and said, hey, make this guy fold ace king, like 500 gets the job. No, probably have to go 800, 900, maybe 1,000. If he has ace king with the ace of spades or king of spades, this guy's not folding to 1,200, right? I think we can just go much bigger on this turn.
Mr. Worldwide 305 Dale, and then we do get a call. Love to see that. So we heads up to a river, really just hoping to fade a fourth spade, and the river's the four of diamonds, clean looking river. When the villain checks it over to us, I still think we can get too greedy in this spot, so I decide to choose a less than half pot size bet. I go ahead and make it 500 bangers to go, and then the villain throws in the...
Yeah, I think we can just get a little bit more greedy on this river again. I don't think ace queen is folding for 1,000, 1,200, right? The size to get greedy is on the turn when they still have possibilities. If they have ace king with the ace of spades, king of spades, ace queen, pocket tens, pocket aces, like they're just never folding the turn. The time to get greedy is on the turn. We probably have to be a little more cognizant of sizing on the river. Like we got to size down on the river. I like that he sized down. I still think we can get a little more greedy than he did though. However, in this hand, I'm gonna give this one a 4. This hand is a 4. I think it's acceptable but flawed. I just thought the sizing was pretty far off on the turn. Overall though, some pretty salient points here. I especially like the thought process on the flop. We don't need to get kings through jacks to fold right now. We can give them to fold to a double barrel or whatever. I like this thought process. I just thought the turn sizing was pretty egregious blunder here. Let's move on to the next one.
So we've got a straddle on for this next hand, and I'm in the +2 position with Jack 10 offsuit. There's so much incentive for me to play hands aggressively here and try to VPip to get rid of my nip button as one of the final two. So I'm definitely raising this hand and using a larger size as well to try and maximize fold equity. So I just boof it straight up to 100 bangers, and then I only get called.
I don't mind like thinking about like limping from up front, especially in these games when we have the nip button. The reason why I like to consider limps from up front, we just get to see many more flops. And then he talked about like maximizing fold equity by going 100 here, but like with a bunch of uncapped ranges behind us, actually the best way to maximize fold equity is maybe to go for the limp raise, at least considering like just like limping range from up front. It works out pretty nicely in our favor when our incentive is just like to try to win a lot of pots.
By the self-hating Chicagoan in the straddle. So it heads up to a flop of 6-5-3 with 2 hearts. When the villain checks it over to me, this is not a great board for our range. I think if we stab at this board with everything in our range, the villain's just going to check raise us very aggressively, as he is an aggressive villain. Now, having said that, probably shouldn't be worrying about it too much since this hand has very low showdown value and very low equity, but I do check it back in game.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is like, even like an aggressive player, like they're gonna have to find some crazy unintuitive bluffs here. They're gonna just have to find like naked 7x and start check raising that with like no backdoors. They're gonna have to, you know, start finding hands like 8-9, just a gutter with no backdoor and start check raising that. They're gonna have to start finding hands like 2 overs with a heart in it and start check raising that. Like to punish us, they have to do some pretty crazy stuff. So I'd probably, unless we're like against a really special player, especially with our incentives here, I'm probably just betting.
I think I would put in a bit of a stab here if I had this playback, even though I expect to lose that money a lot. Yeah. Whatever the case, we do see a free turn, which is the ace of spades. What a good turn card for us to bluff on. We're going to have so many ace high checkbacks on the flop. So when the villain checks it over to me, I'm going to bet, and I'm going to bet chunky here. Really try to represent the ace. I go ahead and make it 205.
Would like to see a bigger size here, just slightly bigger. I think the problem with this size is we don't really get a lot of clarity on what villain's range is going to be getting to the river. When we choose this size, I do think the villain's going to continue just because we do have the nip button. I think the villain's going to continue with hands like 6x, pocket 7s, pocket 8s, that type of stuff, just for an under pot size bet here, even though we did check back the flop and an ace came. My goal here on this turn would be, can we fold anything except a draw and an ace? Because if we can do that, we have a lot of clarity getting to the river. Villain's probably not going to fold ace x to us on the river because because, well, we've got the nip button and they're probably going to call pretty light. So like we're not going to get an ace to fold in this situation. But what we can do is on this turn, if we get everything to fold but ace X and draws, right? Maybe we go 500 here, 600, something like that in this spot. We get everything to fold except ace X and draws. And now we get to the river, and you know, if we get called, you're like, well, shit, we get there with Jack 10. What we can do on the river is we can just go very small, right? We can go very small and get the busted draws that beat our Jack high to fold. Maybe hand like 3-4, maybe hand like King X of hearts, Queen X of hearts, right? We could just get this stuff to fold by breathing on the pot on the river. So I think I would like to be planning a little bit more ahead to the river.
Not sure what area code that is, and the villain doesn't care either because he throws in the call. Really hate that. I think he's going to have a bunch of ace X hands in his range, and I don't know if we're going to be able to fold him off of those.
True.
When the river's a 4 of hearts, I definitely don't think we're going to be able to get him off of those. Like, in what world do we not stab a flush draw on the flop? How many twos do we realistically have in our range? So when he checks it over to me, I absolutely hate to give up when I only have Jack high on the river and I'm one of the final 2 in the Nick game. But I think even if I went like 1500 here or something, it's totally conceivable the villain could just call me off with an ace.
I agree. The problem here is because of the size we chose on the turn, villain's going to get to the river a lot wider than just ace X. And I think a reasonable thought on this river is, can we just fold that stuff? Like, what if he has like pocket 8s, right? What if he has a hand like King 6, 8-6 suited? He's going to have stuff that's more than just ace X on this river. And sure, he has some flushes now. Maybe he has some straights, but we're not going to get that stuff to fold, which is why I like just going bigger on the turn. I like going bigger on the turn.
He could easily have it to himself closing the action pre-flop. So I just give up with my Jack high. You hate to see it. And the villain shows Queen 6 offsuit. And I'm like, maybe we could have got him off that one. Whatever.
I'm going to give this hand a 3. The reason why I give it a 3 is I would have considered a limp pre-flop. I don't hate the sizing pre-flop, but I didn't think it was the best option. I didn't think the checking on the flop was the best option. I don't hate the check back. I don't think it was the best option. The sizing on the turn, I don't think it was the best option. And then giving up on the river, I don't think it was the best option. So I don't think any street was egregious. I just think this was a hand that was death by 1,000 paper cuts. So I'm going to give this one a 3. I think he could argue for a 4. It's right on the precipice, but we're going to go with a 3 on this one.
Next hand up, we've got a button straddle on and the small blind limp. So I'm in the big blind with ace-8 of diamonds. Could actually go either way between raising and limping this one, but limping ain't pimping, baby. I buff it up to 100 bangers.
I like how he says buff it up. Well, I don't know what that means, but I like it. It's good. I buff it up.
Then I only get called by the self-hating Chicagoan on the button and the limper folds. So it heads up to a flop of ace, king, king, rainbow. Love raising the ace-8 and hitting top pair. Having said that though, I actually think this is a good spot to protect our checking range against an aggressive villain, because if I bet here, it's going to be kind of hard to get called by a worse hand unless I get sticky with a pocket pair. So I check it over to them.
This seems reasonable. Even against an aggressive player, I'm not sure this is the spot that gets overstabbed or bluffed even by an aggressive player, but I'm not sure we need to protect our checking range here, but I mean, it seems reasonable.
They don't take the bait, they check back, so we're off to a turn, which is the 10 of hearts. Now I start to think about what villain's range is, and I think it's likely they do have some showdown value when they check back on the flop. So I think most of their range is going to be like really weak pocket pairs. So if I wanted to value target that type of stuff, I could bet something like 50. But honestly, I think there's more EV in just checking it over to them. Really protect our checking range, and maybe the villain gets a bit greedy and tries to thin value bet one of those hands, or maybe they turn to 10, they try to thin value bet it, or maybe they just interpret my checking as extremely weak and they do decide to stab at it. So I check it over to.
This is good. I like the thoughts here. These thoughts are good.
Them, and then they do check back, so we get a free river, which is the 8 of clubs, giving us 3 pair. Not that I think we needed it. And again, I think this is just a good play to check it over to the villain to induce bluffs. I mean, maybe if he checked a 10 on the turn, he'll call a small bet, but I don't know, man. I think it's more EV in just checking it over to him, really try to feign weakness and get him to bluff. So I check it over to him, and finally he bets at it. He goes ahead and makes it 105. I throw in the call. The villain says
I like the way he played his hand. I know this seems a little bit unreasonable. I would at least like consider the options on the river. At least consider the options instead of just snap calling. We have the best hand here 99.8% of the time, right? The only reasonable hand that we would ever lose to on this river would be a hand like pocket 8s, which is very, very unlikely, obviously, because of blockers. So I would just at least consider the options, right? If this guy does have a hand like a 10, is he really, really going to believe us after we check 3 times and then check raise on the river, right? We're just free rolling. Like, at least consider maybe going for a tiny baby raise here and like getting the guy to spaz. You said he was aggressive, but overall, let's see the rest of the hand and then I'll grade it.
Favorite words to hear at the poker table, you're good.
I'm gonna give this one a 6. I thought this was a pretty well played hand overall. I mean, pretty good on every street. Would at least consider all the options on the river, even if I don't find the raise, but I think he played this hand quite well. I like his thoughts overall. I think this guy's a solid player in my biased opinion. Pretty good thought process overall. Where is he on our board? Overall, Lee bets. He has a 13. So he is tied with Brad Owen. And did we think Brad was stronger or did we think Lee was stronger? I thought it pretty close. Actually here, guys, I'm going to give the edge to Lee. I love Brad, but I'm going to give the edge to Lee. I think he just had a slightly more consistent thought process. So Lee is going to move up to second on our board behind Mariano, and we will move on. Next up is Gil Jack.
In the first hand, we get King Queen of Diamonds. There's a raise under the gun from my friend TJ to 40, and I'm on the button. I think I can mainly raise this one, but I also think it's okay to call, so this time I decided to switch it up, just call.
I'd at least be considering like who are the players in the blinds, like who's TJ? Is TJ a strong player? If TJ's a strong player, I want to call to keep in the blinds. If TJ's a fish, I want to be 3-betting and playing a pot heads up in positions. That's what I'd be adding here pre-flop.
2 other players in the blinds come along as well, and the flop is Queen Queen 10, which looks pretty nice. It checks to me, and I definitely want to start building this pot. I bet small for $50. It folds back around to TJ, who decides to put in more money. This is great news. He makes it $200. We started the hand around $2,000 deep, and since we're in position, I think that we pretty much are just going to call here, so...
I mean, yeah, I'd probably call as well, but I at least want to consider all the options, right? Like, what happens if we raise? What's his range, right? I at least like to, think about these things.
That is what I do. The turn is the king of clubs, giving us a full house. It just keeps getting better. And he continues betting for $350. This is what dreams are made of. It's pretty easy to play this one. TJ's an aggressive young kid who definitely will get after it with his bluffs, and I want him to blast the river if he just has air, or we're gonna cooler a hand like ace queen, pocket tens, something like that.
I mean, this guy opened from under the gun or early position, right? And then he check raised on the flop and then followed up on the turn. Like, he's got a really good hand. I'd at least maybe consider. Against aggressive player, probably don't need to raise it, but I'd at least consider it, right? At least consider what is his range and what happens if we raise? At least ask the questions.
So I just call. The river comes the 8 of spades, which completes the front door flush. And now he goes for a little block bet of 200, which is around 15% of the pot or so. Not really what I wanted to see, because it means we're probably not coolering him or anything, but nothing really else for me to do besides just jam all in for 13.
It feels like we are up against Queen Jack or Ace Queen or something like that. So I would at least consider what would I do here with a bluff? If I got to this river with a hand 10x of clubs and my opponent flipped over Queen Jack, do I think he would fold if I jammed? That would be the question I'm asking, and if the answer is yes, then we do have King Queen. I'd want a size smaller here. I may just want to click it. If the answer is no, if I think the guy's never folding a hand like Queen Jack suited, obviously just put the money in, but I would like to at least ask these questions.
1500. I don't expect to get paid off here too much. As I thought, he pretty quickly folds.
I'm gonna give this one a 4. I think it was fine. Like I said, 4 is fine, I guess. I don't have any issues with the line he took. Maybe like we said with Mariano, maybe he's holding some stuff back. Maybe he thinks his viewers would find it boring if he put in all this stuff. Very reasonable. That could definitely be the case. You know what? I think that could be the case with all of the players we've talked about so far. They may have much deeper thoughts, and I'm just judging them on the surface. All of these guys, except probably one of them. So yeah, I'm gonna give this one a 4 because I gotta go with what I got, and what I have is what we just heard. So I think this is fine. We got a 4 in this one.
In the next one, we have ace 8 of hearts in late position. A good player and friend, Jacob, in the hijack raises to 50. I re-raise to 170. And we get 2 players to cold call from the blinds.
Seems like a good game. If his friend is actually a good player, I'd be strongly considering flatting with a suited ace just to... I know the blinds ended up calling anyway, but when a good player opens, I just want to be doing a lot of calling to let the weak players in behind me, especially with an ace high suited hand that can just cooler, that can flush over flush guys who are going to come in behind with a bunch of suited trash.
And Jacob comes along as well. The game is good. We're going 4 ways in position to a flop that comes Jack 6-4 rainbow with 1 heart. It checks to me, and I don't think I want to stab this into 3 other players all the time. We have lots of backdoor potential, so I decide to just see a free turn card. I'm glad I did, because it's the 5 of hearts. Pretty much a perfect card for us. We improve to the ace high flush draw and a gut shot. Now it checks to Jacob, and he bets for 450. It's about 2/3 the size of the pot. And given how much equity we picked up on the turn, we just cannot fold yet. I just hope that somebody behind me doesn't really decide to get crazy here, because that would suck if we call in.
It's some fear-based thinking. Let's consider the options options here again. I'd like to consider like what happens if we call, what happens if we raise. Like let's walk through what happens if
somebody else decides to raise. So I call the 420, but now the player in the straddle just calls. So you thought he was going to raise or something, didn't you? So this pot is ballooned up to nearly $2,000, and the river is an ace. Okay. We improve our hand, but not necessarily in the way that we'd hoped. Facing aggression from either player is going to be pretty uncomfortable and tough to call. But luckily for us, they both just check to me, and I do not think that my hand is going to be strong enough to value.
Why? I'd at least consider, like, we're always ahead of the Jacob guy when the Jacob. I like the Jacob. When the Jacob bets on the turn, checks the flop and then bets on the turn, then checks on the river, we just always beat him. I mean, I guess the overcaller could have a hand like ace-4, ace-5 or something like that sometimes, but I would at least consider, even though I wouldn't value bet here, I'd at least consider it. I wouldn't just snap check back. Let's see what they have.
I just check back hoping to win, and I do. Jacob looks very disappointed, so I'm assuming he just had like a jack or something. I'm not sure what the other guy had.
I'm gonna give this one a 4. Again, guys, it's fine. I would have at least considered all the options pre-flop. I would have considered all the options on the turn, and I would have considered all the options on the river. Just some minor quibbles. I don't think there's any punts here. I just think it's fine. It's reasonable.
We're in late position with 8-7 suited, and we raised to $50 over an early position limp. The big blind and early position player call, and the flop comes ace-10-9 rainbow. We have an open-ended straight draw. When it checks to me, I start with a bet of 40. But neither player shy away quite yet. They both stick in the call. The turn doesn't help us at all. It's the 4 of clubs, but this is where it gets interesting because the big blind decides to lead very small for 60 bucks. The other guy calls, and it's back on me. This is a strange bet, as I really just don't think it's going to be nutted very often at all.
Nah, this is not nutted. He's right. This is going to be like ace-x of clubs or 10x of clubs quite a bit. I like his thinking here.
He's just afraid to face more aggression from me if he checks. And I think it's really just a great spot to put some pressure on the weak one pair parts of his range. I raised to 350. I'm honestly not expecting to get called that much here.
I would expect to be called quite a bit here, actually.
How small of a size he chose. But, of course, the big blind does call. And not only that, but the other guy says, why not? He calls as well, too. I don't know what's going on here, but I don't think I'm going to bluff the river, given
I mean, it seems reasonable.
that they both called me. I think it's just a bad spot. But fortunately for us, we don't have to worry about bluffing because the river is the jack of hearts. We make a straight. When it checks to us, now this is just great. I think going too big here would be a mistake though, with 13.
Hold on. He just said, I'm not going to bluff the river because it seems like a bad spot. Now he makes his hand and he says, we don't want to go too big.
1,520 in the pot. I decide on a sizing of 900.
Guys, both of these things can't be true. If we brick on the river and we're like, well, you know what? Bad spot to bluff, I give up. And then we get there on the river and we're like, well, you know what? Bad spot to put it all in for all the money. I'm just gonna size small, right? Both of these things can't be true. It is tough, right? Like, give this guy credit. He's putting himself on camera, like he's recording his hands. Like, poker's hard. So like, I don't want to be shitting on him, but like, this is not to shit on him. This is a very, very common thing. A lot of poker players do. I did this all the time. And the only way I was able to break myself out of this was by asking on every single river, what would I do with the inverse? That's the only way to hold myself logically consistent. Because if I don't do it, I screw up. And what I do when I get there on the river, I say, okay, if I did brick on this river, what size would I bet as a bluff? And if my bluff size is going to be all in because I think they're going to fold, well, shit, now I know my value size can't be all in because I don't want them to fold. And if my bluff size is going to be, well, you know what, I don't feel comfortable bluffing, then I know my value size should be all in. This just logical inconsistency, I feel like really, I see this hold players back all the time. It held me back. This held me back quite a bit.
I think that we're just going to get looked up by any 2 pair here, obviously. Perhaps they're going to get sticky with top pair. That would be awesome. The big blind goes deep into the tank for a couple minutes. He is struggling. He doesn't know what to do. But after a couple minutes, he decides to release his cards into the muck. The other guy snap folds. So we don't get any more value, but we still do win a nice pot.
I'm gonna give this one a 3. Clear mistake, flawed reasoning. One significant error that a thinking player shouldn't make. That was the spot on the river. I thought everything else in the hand was okay. The c-bet on the flop, the raise to the donk on the turn. I thought all this was pretty good. Just missing the forest through the trees here on the river with I'm gonna give up if I brick. Oh wait, I get there. Let's not put all the money in. I'm gonna give this one a 3. So overall, that's 3 hands from Gil Jack. He is at in 11. Let's keep moving on. We're gonna go to Gazzy B next, the guy I used to play with all the time at Hustler.
Next up, I've got ace four of spades on the button. I raise it on up to $35. The big blind is a regular looking fella. He is going to put in the re-raise. He makes it $150 to go. Action is back on me, and I ain't folding a suited wheel ace, of course. I go ahead and make the call. We go heads up to the flop.
Seems fine. I think this hand in this configuration against a reg like slightly too strong to 4-bet. I'd be choosing like the ace deuce, ace six, kind of like my trashiest suited aces to 4-bet. I want to be 4-betting polar in position against a reg. Seems fine.
It comes down ace jack 5 with 2 spades. About as good as can be here. I've got top pair, not flush draw, and my opponent checks it on over to me. I am going to bet out here always with my hand. I've just got so much equity. It's robust. It can call a check raise. I bet out for $110. My opponent thinks for a few seconds and then makes the call. Turn is a 7. I was kind of hoping for a spade there, to be honest. He is going to check it on over to me, and I decide to just check it back a little.
I don't mind the check back on the turn, but the thing I'd push Gazzy here on is when a reg 3-bets in the small blind and then checks on an ace jack X board, like what do they have? Right? Because like what reg here is going to like be balanced and check when they have a hand like ace king or ace queen or pocket jacks and just like check call on the flop, right? They just like, they don't really have these hands. What do they have? They probably just have showdown value, right? They have a lot of showdown value. They've got jack X, they've got pocket queens, they got pocket kings. So I would be considering going for some value here on this turn, and I think I may go for some chunky value because it looks like we could just be bluffing quite a lot. Wide configuration, ton of draws. There's straight draws, there's a double flush draw. Like I think we may be able to get greedy on this turn. I just think we got the best hand all the time. I don't mind checking back. I don't think it's egregious, but I think I would at least consider going for the old big boy bet on this turn. I think we can get pocket kings, pocket queens to get a little bit sticky in this particular spot.
A bit of pot control because my opponent could definitely have a better hand.
I'm not sure that's true.
River is a 7, no spades, and when my opponent checks it on over to me, I'm very confident about the strength of my hand. Now, I don't think if my opponent's got like an ace 10 or an ace 9 or something like that, he's ever going to check. So I definitely want to go for value here. I bet out for $400. I think
we can go a little bigger. I agree, like he just always has the best hand. I think we can go a little bigger here on this river. I don't think kings or queens are folding.
Fade the snap fold. My opponent thinks it over for a few seconds, and eventually he sticks in the call. I turn over my hand, and my top pair is good. This is a nice pot coming my way.
I'm gonna give this one a 5. I say solid, competent play here. Right line, reasonable sizing, demonstrates understanding of the spot, but the thought process has a small gap. I mean, minor quibble, minor couple quibble. I mean, I may consider choosing that big boy size on the turn. I may consider going a little bit bigger on the river, but this is fine. This is solid. I give this a 5.
Very next hand, we're back in action. I've got queen 10 offsuit in the $25 straddle. Under the gun is going to limp in, and then the cutoff puts in the raise. He makes it $100 to go. I am going to call, and under the gun calls as well. 3 ways to the flop we go, and we flop top pair on queen 9-6 with 2 hearts. It's just going to check all the way around on the flop, and we see an innocuous looking 3 roll off on the turn. I definitely want to bet out here with my top pair, especially versus the limper, so I bet out for $250.
I think the sizing is a little bit lazy, but I do like he chose a big size. I think we can dial the sizing a little more. A bigger or smaller, right? The size kind of in between zone. If the preflop raiser has a hand like pocket jacks or pocket 10s or ace 9 or something like that, he's not folding to like 400 or 500 here. If the limper has a hand like 9x or 7-8 or heart draw, like he's not folding, right? Just go bigger. I do think we can get a little bit more greedy.
Limper is going to get out the way, and the cutoff is not going to call either. Instead, the cutoff is going to check back the flop and then raise me on the turn. He makes it $650 to go.
This is underbluffed. We talked about this before, this check back the flop and then raise the turn, but the sizing, again, less than 3x size. We saw this before, I believe in the Mariano hand. I mean, alarm bells are going off, but the sizing, you know, usually when they check back the flop with a hand like pocket queens or pocket 9s or something, and then decide to spring the trap on the turn, usually the sizing just tells you, like they raise like 900 or 1,000 or something like that, they start to get a little bit more greedy.
Not really sure what to make of this. I can't really assign any value, and I can't really assign any bluffs either. I guess the value is pocket 3s, obviously, and maybe some flush draws that have checked back that now decide to raise. It's a bit of a weird spot.
Yeah, I would kind of quibble with that. I say in general, if a player's going to be aggressive with flush draws, they're going to tend to be aggressive on the flop. Like they're not going to check back and then get aggressive when they're facing aggression. I'm not sure how often a player is going to raise with pocket 3s over a limp either.
But I do, of course, call here. I've got top pair, not going anywhere. I make the call, and we see a 4 roll off on the river. I am going to check again, and after about 45 seconds or so, the cutoff is going to pile up his his stack of $1,600 and slide it into the middle. I've got no reads on this guy. I've been here for 5 minutes, and I'm not really sure what to do here. I cannot think of any value. I can't think of any bluffs. So in the end, I decide I think this is just going to be an under bluff spot. It's going to be a weird hand like ace queen or a flopped set or maybe a turn set or something like that. I just sigh. I lay down my top pair with a weak kicker.
I don't hate this fold. I'd probably find a fold here too. The spidey sense on the turn were tingling, but now when the guy jams all in on the river, right? The check back flop, raise turn, and now he jams the river. Like, I don't know, guys. This is under bluffed. Like, I can get behind this fold here.
Enough. Instagram actually agrees with me on this one.
I don't give a shit what Instagram says, Gazzy.
Majority of people would also fold. I do love these Instagram polls that I'm putting up a couple of times.
I mean, the people of Instagram, like, I don't even know if a third of them. Never mind. I'll just see.
They're a lot of fun to see how everyone else wants to play. I'm also going to get to see what my opponent's got here because he windmills ace-5 of spades across the table. All right, Florida seems like a lot of fun.
I probably would have done this. I think this hand was well played. I quibble a little bit with the sizing on the turn that Gazzy chose. But I'm going to give this one a 6. I think his reasoning was sound here. Process over results. I like the process here. I'm going to give him a 6.
Next up, 25 minutes later, I've got 9-7 offsuit in the straddle. Under the gun is going to call. Big blind is going to complete. And I'm, of course, going to check my 9-7 offsuit. We've got 3 ways to the flop, and it comes down king at 9-8 all red. It is just going to check round on the flop. We see a 7 roll off on the turn to give me 2 pair. It's also going to bring that second flush draw, so I definitely want to bet out here. I lead out for $75.
I mean, I like leading. I like just betting here. I don't love going for a check raise with this particular hand. I think we just get coolered too much when we do that, and it generates more fold equity. The hands I would like to check raise here is obviously when we do have the straight, and we just want to play a massive pot against 2 pair. I don't mind leading. I think we can get a lot more greedy than this in a limp pot. In a pot of 80, I think we could probably just go 150.
Under the gun is going to call, and the big blind calls as well. Lots of bad rivers, but a black 3 is as clean as can.
Would love to see an overbet. Would love to see an overbet here.
And I definitely want to bet for value with my 2 pair. I bet out for $425.
And he chooses bigger than 10% of the bet. This is a good chunky sized overbet. This is nice.
The gun player gets out the way. And I'm fully expecting the big blind to just rip it in for $3,000 here. Even though it wouldn't make any sense, I'm just expecting to be in the worst possible situation. And let's be honest, I'd probably fold again. Thankfully, he is just going to make the call. I show my hand, and I am able to win the pot.
This is another 6 for me. Very, very good. This is close to a 7. Should I give it a 7? I'm going to give it a 6, just because of the turn sizing. One minor quibble. Gazzy B overall, what are we at here? 17? And I think that is going to move him into the lead. One slot above Mariano here on our leaderboard. Gazzy B is moving into the lead. We're going to move on to NorCal Poker next.
In our first hand of the day, there's 3 limps in the field. I'm on the button and look down at Queen Jack offsuit. Anytime I'm in ultimate position and have an offsuit Broadway hand against limpers, I'm going to increase the price of admission. Make it $12 to go and just get called by the small blind and hijack. Going 3 ways to a flop.
I don't love isolating this hand over multiple limpers, even if we are in the button. My ISO range, once there's 2 limpers, it's going to be relatively tight. This hand probably just a pip or 2 too wide here, especially at these stack depths. I believe he's playing 1-2 or 1-3, so 100 big blinds deep, 150 big blinds deep. Like, I just wouldn't be ISOing this hand.
King 7-3 rainbow giving us 2 undercards and a dream. Action gets checked to me. Whenever I have the range advantage and 2 pairs should never be represented, I'll almost always bluff on a king-high board.
I don't know if this is relevant at 1-2 or 1-3, guys. Do the other players know how to spell range event? Do they even know what that means, right? We're multi-way here. I'm just going to choose hands that have equity or hands that are good hands, multi-way. Like, I don't care about range advantage or any of this because, like, they're not going to overfold because you have the range advantage, right? It doesn't matter.
No need to bet big, so I throw out a c-bet of $15, just get called by the small blind. Since I bet small, I think he could still be floating in this spot with a lot of pocket pairs, any 7, and obviously a king.
I don't think this is necessarily true. He called next to act, and when players call next to act, it's just going to be a stronger range. I think this is going to be king X a lot. It could be some traps as well, but I think this is probably just going to be a stronger range. I mean, I guess he could have a gut shot sometimes too, but it's going to be a stronger range when a player calls next to act here.
Keeping that in mind, we're off to a turn. And it's a good one, and the Jack of Clubs giving us an open-ended straight draw but putting 2 clubs out there. Unless he specifically has King Jack, this card should almost never improve our opponent, so when he checks again, Decided to keep the aggression going with a pot-sized bet of $65.
I like that he chose a big size here, but the thing I'd be thinking about is like structuring this. So like, what's the plan, right? We started 300 effective. So like, is the plan going to be to give up on the river? Because like, we're not going to have enough to get this guy to fold a king, or like, what is the plan here? That's what I would be considering on the turn.
My goal with the sizing is to get fold from all his pairs below a king, as well as put a ton of weak kings in a super tough spot.
I don't think even a weak king is folding here.
Opponent isn't phased because he snap calls our bet. And I'm not too into physical tells, but like I said in my most recent vlog, snap calls are almost always a combo draw because if our opponent had two pairs.
I don't think that's true. I think it can be a combo draw. I think it could also just be king X, like a hand like king queen or something like that, or king 10.
Given that read, I'm basically putting our opponent on king X of clubs or 7X of clubs, since queen 10 of clubs isn't possible since I'm holding the 10 of clubs in my hand.
See, this is the misapplying blockers, like queen 10 of clubs, like what this guy called next to act on the flop with queen 10 of clubs, right? The 10 of clubs is absolutely irrelevant. I love NorCal. Like, we had him on the channel. He did great. I just want to point this out because I think a lot of players get caught up in the blocker sauce. Yeah, we have the 10 of clubs. We're blocking him from having queen 10 of clubs, but he can't have queen 10 of clubs. Like, would he have called our c-bet on the flop next to act in a multi-way pot with queen 10 of clubs? Probably not, right? So just getting too caught up in the blocker stuff.
Clean river, there's still plenty of money behind to put our opponent to the test and go all in. But we see the horrific deuce of clubs bringing in the backdoor flush. To make matters worse, our opponent now leads into us for a bet of $40. Even though the sizing looks weak, and I'm sitting here with just queen high, I think a bluff would be a horrible play given my read, so I toss my hand in the muck and our opponent flashes.
I like that he considered all the options. He considered the bluff. I like that he at least considered it. I wouldn't bluff here either. I just don't think we have the stacked up behind even when our opponent leads small. I wouldn't expect to see king X of clubs all that off. I just expect to see like king queen, like trying to set its own price or whatever. But I wouldn't attempt to bluff that hand for the stacked up we started this hand at.
The king of clubs later telling me he had king 9 of clubs for the rivered flush.
I guess that makes sense. I would just expect to see like king queen here quite a bit. I'm gonna give this one a 4. I think like it's fine. I quibble with a few small things. I don't think there was anything like unreasonable. I thought the ISO was a little bit too wide. I thought the c-bet was a little bit too wide. I liked the turn sizing and I liked the river fold. If there was one more mistake, I would have given this a 3. I think it's kind of like right on the line, but I think we're right there. It's a 3.7. I'm gonna give this a 4.
In this next hand, I throw on the $4 straddle to keep the action going. 5 people decide to limp along with the call. When action gets to me in the straddle, I look down at the beautiful 5 deuce offsuit and obviously check my option. Going 6 ways to an amazing flop of king 5 deuce with 2 clubs, giving us the most disguised 2 pair of all time. Action gets checked to me. Anytime there isn't a pre-flop aggressor and I have a hand that's vulnerable to getting counterfeited, I almost always lead out with a bet.
I think this is a little bit of fear-based thinking. I'm just thinking about like, how do I get in the most amount of value? Like, how many players are behind me? Is this likely to get stabbed? Like, can we get in more money if we check raise, or can we get in all the money if we just come out and bet? Like, I don't know. I at least want to consider it. These are the questions I'm asking.
I'm sticking to that strategy by throwing out a value bet of $10, to which a player in early position calls. But now the cutoff min raises us to 20. He has about $60 behind, so I could go all in to get ultimate protection from the player in early position.
Is he still concerned about protection? I'd just be really concerned about getting value.
I wanted to take a little risk, hoping to raise to an amount that will put the cutoff all in, but hopefully entice the player in early position to call with the draw. So I make it $80 to go. It seems to do the trick because the player in early position joins the party, and this pot has quickly increased to $260. Going heads up to a dry side pot, hoping for a 5 or a deuce to make my life easier. It peels off the 8 of diamonds, which all in all seems pretty safe. No need to slow down now, so I go all in for around 175 total.
The play seems fine. I want to think about like the guy in the dry side pot with us, like what is his range? Like that's the question I'd be asking. Even if I would make the same play here, I want to be considering it.
Without much thought, our opponent quickly folds. I roll over my hand, and after the river peels off the queen of hearts, our opponent shows king 10 of spades for just top pair. We scoop this one in with one of the worst pre-flop hands in poker.
Again, I think this is fine. I'm gonna give it a 4. It's fine. Let's move on.
In this one, I once again throw on the $4 straddle and see 3 limps. 4 actions on me, and I look down at a strong holding and ace-queen offsuit. Obviously need a raise, so I make it $25 to go. Get action from a player in early position and the button. Going 3 ways to a flop of ace-9-4 rainbow, giving us top pair second best kicker. I don't think I could get 3 streets of value from worse.
Why? I'm a little confused by that. Like, why can't we get 3 streets of value from worse? Like, do we think players are just folding ace jack and ace 10 to 3 barrels on this board? If so, like, we should just be indiscriminately bluffing in this spot all the time whenever we just have air. If we think they're just folding ace jack and ace 10 all the time, like, we should just bluff this spot every single time, all of the time. And if he's doing that, cool. If it's not, I would question why.
So since there's no draws available, I decided to under-rep my hand and start off with a check.
I'm a big fan of checking from out of position. I think in this spot, when stacks are relatively shallow, when the SPR is low, I'm just trying to go bet, bet, bet and get all the money in. We don't have to choose large sizes on any street to get all the money. I don't think that player at 1-2 or 1-3 is folding a hand like ace 10 or ace jack. I would just try to put the money in here and stack an ace. I wouldn't get cute. Big fan of checking from out of position because players tend to overstab. This is the board where they overstab the least. And also, like, we don't need a check raise to get all the money in. We're starting off relatively shallow. We just go bet, 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 get the money in. Just put the money in.
Action gets checked through. The turn pairs the board and the 9 of diamonds, putting 2 9s out there. But all in all, shouldn't really change anything.
I mean, we lose to 9x now. Like, we had the best hand all the time on the flop. We don't have the best hand all the time now.
Decided to throw out a delayed c-bet for $20 to keep all the weak non-believing pocket pairs in there, as
I'm not sure that happens.
well as all the weak aces. Just get called by the button, increasing this pot to 120. Off to a river. It seems like a massive blank when the 3 of hearts peels off. Our opponent has about $105 behind. If he has a weak ace, I don't think he could call a big bet, so I decided to throw out a bet of $55.
Yeah, I mean, the question I'm asking on this river is our opponent flips over a hand like ace 6, and we get here with nothing. Do we feel comfortable just jamming all in for $100 or something like that on this river to try to get him to fold ace 6? I don't know how much we have on it. It looks like we have like $100 behind on this river, effective with the villain, right? Do we think this guy's folding ace 6 for $100? Like, why? If he checked back the flop with top pair, like, is he checking back to fold ace? Like, no, probably not. So, like, that's the question I'd be asking here.
Hoping I get action. And after our opponent flicks in 1 chip and the dealer says call, I roll over my hand. But nothing happens because our opponent said he went all in, but the dealer misunderstood what he said because the speakers went on at that exact time. It's all in stands, which I have no problems with. But now I'm in a super weird spot. As I've mentioned in previous vlogs, turn and river raises are almost never a bluff. The pot's sitting at $280 and I only have to call off for $50 more.
This is never a bluff. I would love to see a fold here. I think this is almost always going to be a checked back trap, a hand like ace 9 or pocket 4s. I think this is almost always going to be one of those hands.
Poker book I've never read probably says to call off in this spot since I'm getting such amazing.
Not my poker book, not the Hungry Horse book of poker.
Odd odds. They're not in the low stakes trenches like I am. In my opinion, our opponent is never doing this with worse. Don't ever see a bluff in this spot, so I fold and he shows pocket 3s for the rivered full house.
This is a very good fold. This is a very good fold. I quibble with a lot of the decisions in this hand, but I really like the river fold, especially getting a crazy good price. A lot of players would just sigh and flick it in here. I'm going to give NorCal a 4 on this hand. I quibble with a lot, but I really like the fold. Overall, he is at a 12. Next up, Cory Iring.
That's when I pick up 9 into clubs in the big blind. There's a $20 straddle on, and under the gun raises to $80. It's a big raise, but the low jack calls, and the small blind does as well. This guy has $5,000, so...
It looks like to me the guy raised pre-flop has 2K unless there's an error in the graphics, but we want to keep in mind the stack of the original opener, not the players who call in the field.
Money left to play for. I make the call, and the straddle does as well. 5 of us go to a flop of queen 10-6 all clubs. We flop a flush. I check, hoping someone behind me places a bet, but unfortunately... action checks around.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'd donk here. I don't think I would donk here, but I'd at least consider like what happens if. The straddle's going to always check to the preflop raiser. The preflop raiser, if he checks, he's only got 1 player behind him. The spots where I do like to donk, when we have a very strong hand, when like the preflop raiser doesn't have anybody behind him, like if the preflop raiser here was the low jack and everybody was just going to naturally check the preflop raiser, I just always donk here because I just expect it to get checked through a lot and all the players are going to naturally check to him. So not saying I'm a donk. I would just at least consider it, possibly. Just throw it out there.
Hopefully no club on the turn. The ace of hearts. That's magical. King
would consider leading here.
Jack now makes a straight. Someone probably has top pair, maybe even 2 pair. I check once more.
I would at least consider all the options, like what happens if we lead, what happens if we check raise. I mean, I don't hate checking here. I don't think it's terrible. I would just like to weigh all the options, put that in my thought process and weigh them, because I do think there's quite a bit of merit to just coming out and leading here for an overbet size, minimizes fold equity. An ace is never going to fold if we just come out and lead, and I think an ace may check back at a high frequency if we check here, but an ace is never going to fold even to like $750, $800 here if we just come out and bet. So would at least consider it.
And now the original raiser bets $125. The low jack calls, and action folds back to me. There are a lot of rivers that could kill my action, or even give someone a higher flush.
This is kind of fear-based thinking.
So I want to put in a raise now. I make it $700.
My raise size would be more about his range rather than fear-based thinking.
The original raiser calls, but the low jack folds. Heads up to a river, praying to see a clean one. It's the king of diamonds. Now when a jack makes a straight.
Are there birds in the background? Is he playing in a casino with birds? Like, do I hear birds?
But I'm not worried about a straight. I have a flush. This player only has around $1,300 behind, so one move for me. I'm all in. He snap calls with ace king of clubs.
Nah, whatever. I give this one a 4. I don't think there was anything egregious. This is fine. I would at least like to consider all the options. I think there was some fear-based thinking. I want to consider my opponent's range before I do actions, but I don't think there were any huge punts or anything like that in this thought process. Give it a 4.
An orbit later, I pick up ace king once again. This time the cutoff opens to $50. The small blind calls, and I bump it up to $250. Both players make the call, and we go 3 ways to a flop of nothing. However,
listen to this, guys. I can crack my chest. Listen, let's see if it works. Do you hear that?
I have a gut shot and 2 overs, and this board will often miss both of my opponents. So this time I decide to continue betting for $300, but the cutoff makes the call. That's unfortunate because he has a player left to act, so I think he's going to be a lot stronger than if the small blind decided to continue.
Yeah, this is pretty reasonable thinking here. The only thing I would add is, like, I want to consider all the options. Like, I'm not saying bet is bad on this board. I want to consider what happens if we check as well, but I do like Cory picked this up. This is pretty nuanced. This is good.
The small blind folds, and when the turn card does not improve me, I decide to slow down and check. He checks it back.
I would at least consider what he's called next to act. That's fine. He could have some traps occasionally, right? He could have pocket 4s or pocket 5s. He could have ace 3 occasionally. He could have some traps, but the traps are few and far in between, right? So the thing I consider, like, if this guy does have a hand like pocket 9s or pocket 8s or something like that, is this the kind of guy we can get to fold that hand by the river? Some players yes, some players no, but I'd at least ask the question now. And if it is the type of guy we can do that, like, let's set that up, right? Let's apply the pressure. Let's set up the right SPR for the river where we got that big boy overbet behind and we can get him to call with pocket 8s and now get him to fold on the river. Like, maybe that doesn't happen, but, like, let's at least consider it.
And the river card is another deuce. Now, I could still have overpairs.
I don't think we can. I think we just bet on the turn with our overpairs all the time.
10s plus.
I don't think that's true.
I think the only course of action here is to go all in or check again.
I don't think that's true either.
If I check, I'm not really expecting to win all that often. And I don't really know how believable my image is at this point.
I think our image is overrated. Our image is always overrated. We want to think more about the other players and what has happened to them so far. They're the hero of their own story, right? Are they having a good day or a bad day? Like, are they up? Are they down? Have they gotten a bluff windmill in their face? Do they have all their chips in the rack and they're about to drive home, booking a big win? Like, think about them. Don't think about us.
So I check. He quickly checks behind and shows 6-5 of hearts.
I'm gonna give this one a 3. I think a couple clear gaps in the thought process here. I really like that he picked up that the guy had a stronger range. Although I don't mind how he played the hand, I just think some pretty big gaps, especially on the turn and on the river, which is some simple questions I would like to see asked, some things I would like to see considered.
Shortly after, I pick up King Jack of clubs. The cutoff opens to $150. The button makes the call. Then the small blind puts in another raise to $800. This is another one of those hands where I don't think it's good enough to call, but we have great properties to put in another raise as a bluff.
I like the 4-bet. This seems okay.
$1,000.
Wide configuration, right? Cutoff raises, button calls, small blind squeeze. Small blind is going to be wide squeezing here if they're a reg. Like, I like the 4-bet.
Cutoff folds. The button does as well, but the small blind sticks in the call. Not ideal. I would love to take it down pre-flop, but we go off to 3 cards, which great for my range, not great for my exact holding. It's ace 4 deuce rainbow. The small blind checks, and I continue betting for $1,100.
Can't really go wrong betting quarter pot in a 4-bet pot. I would like to go even a little bit smaller here on this board because like I want to make sure a hand like pocket tens or pocket queens or something like that. Like I want to make sure these hands call one time, and I'm not sure they do, even to a quarter size pot, because like what hands do they put us on when we cold 4-bet, right? And put us on aces, ace king, right? Maybe ace queen. I don't want queens to fold here. I would love for queens to call one time, so I maybe size down. This is one of the spots where I like to go like 10% pot.
She makes the call, which isn't great news because I have king high. Turn card doesn't improve our hand, and she checks to me again. I think she's going to have a lot of hands like nines, tens, jacks, queens.
I'll push back on that after we go quarter pot on the flop and a 4-bet pot when we're the pre-flop cold 4-better.
All these middling pocket pairs are going to be very uncomfortable facing another bet. If I had aces, ace king, ace queen, I would bet once more.
I don't think that's a good reason. We don't have to do the same thing with a bluff that we do with value. I would just like to hold that logical thought process. Like, what is the goal here? If the goal is to get hands like pocket jacks or pocket queens to fold, like, I mean, maybe she calls with those hands on the flop. Maybe she peels one. That's reasonable. I just like to hear the whole plan elucidated. Like, what is the plan here on the turn? Then what is the plan on the river?
So I toss out $3,200. This is the tensest moment in every hand where you're sitting with a bluff and you're praying they make the fold. Please believe me. She doesn't. She puts in the call, and I'm about done with it. The river card improves us to a pair. We're beating tens and nines.
I think this is just inconsistent here. I don't think we're like the tens and nines call the flop bet, let alone the turn bet. Like I think this is, we don't really have showdown value here. And so I'd be thinking about on this river, like if our opponent flipped over a hand like ace king or ace queen, like is she ever folding? Like ace king, probably not. I don't think ace king is ever folding here. Like could we get ace queen, a hand like ace queen suited to fold? That's the question I'd be asking when I consider if I'm gonna bluff or not on this river. If we can get ace queen suited to fold, I think we may have a profitable bluff here. Maybe? I don't know. I'd at least think about it. I think the egregious part here is well, my opponent can have pocket nines or pocket tens after calling 2 bets.
I don't think it's worth barreling a third time and we lose to ace queen.
I'm gonna give this one a 3. I like the 4-bet. I like the small c-bet. Just being able to hold that coherent thread. Like our opponent doesn't have hands like pocket nines or pocket queens or something like that. After they call a bet on the flop and the turn in a cold 4-bet pot, we got to be able to hold that thread. I'm gonna give this one a 3. Cory overall coming in at a 9 here on our board, and we're gonna move along to Cory's brother next, Gethen Iring. So we're gonna review his hands next year.
Let's play these pocket kings. Mid-position limps, and the button raises to 12. I've been here for a few orbits, and these two players have been doing this frequently, so I expect both ranges to be quite wide. I want to make sure the button continues, so I raise on the smaller side to 35. Both blinds and the limper get out of the way, and the button calls. The flop comes jack 4-3 with 2 clubs, and he checks out his turn. My kings should still be best and way ahead of nearly anything he has. I want to encourage him to get creative and give me action with all the hands in his range, so I bet tiny for 15.
I think we can just go bigger here. I think we can get a little bit more greedy. Buttons range too, because like we chose that small size pre-flop because we wanted him to give us action and call wide. And if he's going to call wide, like what happens if we check? What does he do with all the bullshit? Does he just stab? I want to consider all the options here on the flop. I'm not saying I would always check. At this stack depth, this SPR, I may just bet, but I want to consider at least like what happens if.
He doesn't think long and calls. Turn is the 9 of hearts.
Gethen has a good microphone. It sounds great.
Jack 9 or pocket 9s are the only hands that improve, and I'm still feeling pretty.
He also has a good voice. I like listening to this guy. I do.
It does add a number of straight draws, which are going to be a good part of the range that decides to float the flop. King, queen, queen 10 type of hands. For those reasons, combined with how quickly he called the flop, now's a good time to size up. One of the benefits of watching my playback is I get to see where I could have improved, and this is one of them. I bet 40, which is a little too small. He's going to be less price sensitive with the hands he wants to continue with, and I need to charge him for it. He's got about 200 left, and I like betting 60 or 70 to set up the river for a shove.
I think considering like just playing a 2-street game here, if we go a little bigger on the flop, we just jam the turn, right? I think this is reasonable as well.
My smaller bet also allows him to draw pretty cheaply. He calls. River is the 8 of clubs. It brings in the flush and completes one straight he could have, but I still think there's value to be had from all the worst pairs in his range. With it being a scare card, I think we need to size down. I bet 65.
I think you went too small in every street, pre-flop, flop, and turn, but I do like the small size here on the river. I think this is good. I think this is really good, sizing down on this river.
I'm really just hoping for a call, because we're never good if he raises. Kind of walked myself right into that one. It's only 92 more, and the pot is now over 400. I'm pretty much certain I'm beat, but he has shown a couple spots where he's been willing to bluff raise the river.
No, I mean, is he really talking himself into this?
I just don't think he is here.
Okay, he's gonna fold.
I take the opportunity to show him my cards and see what he thinks.
But I got a pretty good hand. I think you got me beat, but I don't think I can fold.
That confirms my suspicion even more, but with the price I'm getting, I guess I just want to pay to see it. I call, and he's got the nuts.
Yeah, I mean, of course he has the nut. I'm gonna give this one a 2. I don't love this. I would have given this hand probably a 3 or a 4 if it wasn't for the river. I mean, he even said like this, I mean, he has it and then like he calls. This is a 2. This is a pretty big mistake, guys. I think overall we'll be thinking about the SPR a little more, how we're gonna sculpt the SPR. Do we want to play a 2 or 3 street game, considering all the options on the flop or the turn? This hand, because of this big blunder on the river, drops from I think from a 3 to a 2.
Next hand, under the gun raises to 6, and ace-10 guy calls in seat 4. I've got Jack-King off on the button, and if I'm going to play this hand, usually I'll raise here, because it just gives me more options down the line, but I decide to flatten position. The big blind comes along as well. 4 ways to the flop, it comes King, Queen, Jack with 2 diamonds. I've got top and bottom pair, and there's a lot of draws out there. Everyone checks to me. With this action, I'm almost certain to have the best hand, and there's plenty I can get called by. I bet 15. Everyone folds except seat 4. Right now, I'm just figuring he's got 1 pair, maybe a hand with an ace or a 10 in it, possibly diamonds. I do expect diamonds to play a little more aggressively, but on these all high card boards, people tend to play a little more scared.
I think this is good.
Turn is the deuce of hearts. It's pretty clean, but it does put a second flush draw out there.
We'd love to see a big bet here. This guy's just gonna have a ton of inelastic hands, right? He's gonna have a ton of hands like Jack 10, 10x of hearts, Jack X of hearts. We'd love to see a pretty chunky overbet on this turn. Hands like Queen 10 even. Like, I just love to see a really big bet on this turn.
He checks. This is a lot like last hand, where I need to target the hands in his range that will continue.
Good.
They're less sensitive to price and will call bigger bets.
That's pretty good thoughts.
So I could easily go 80% to full pot here for value.
I mean, you could also just go 2x pot too. They're not gonna come and bend you over the table and spank you on your behind if you bet over the size of the pot. You're allowed. It's legal, right? It's not pot limit at all. You're allowed.
As played, I bet 30.
Oof.
And again, this was another mistake.
Yeah.
He almost...
At least he recognizes it. Like, he's very aware. Thought process is okay here.
River is one of the worst cards. The 9 of diamonds. The 2 most obvious draws get there, and now he checks his hole cards and puts out a small bet of 30. I made the mistake of paying him off last hand, and even though it's a great price, I don't think he's turning anything into a bluff or betting a worse hand for value. I fold, and he shows 10-6 suited for a straight.
Yeah, could have got much more greedy on this turn, but I thought overall, like, he played his hand well. I like the fold on the river. I would go bigger on the turn. That's my only nitpick here. Like, obviously, like, much bigger on the turn. I'm gonna give this one actually a 5. I think it was, like, solid, especially because, like, he found this fold on the river. So this one gets a 5 from me.
10 minutes later, the same guy limps, and I've got pocket 8s in the cutoff. I make it 12. The big blind 3 bets to 40. I could totally just fold here and wouldn't get exploited for it. I don't expect him to be raising hands like ace jack and possibly even ace queen, which makes his 3-bet range even tighter, like jacks plus and ace king. Even if his range is this tight, he's got ace king almost half the time. There will be times he's got kings and queens, and we can possibly get him off it like when an ace comes, or when he's got ace king and misses. Plus I'm in position, so I call.
I just don't think we have the stack depth for this if we're really that confident about his range.
The flop comes pretty safe for 8s, but oftentimes it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. If I was ahead, I'm still ahead, but if I was behind, then I still am. Having an overpair just gives me that false sense of security. He leads out for 25. With how often people keep betting ace-king, I don't think I can fold yet.
I agree. We got to call once here. A lot of guys will just stab once and then give up. Also, very small size. I mean, some guys just go a third pot no matter what, but I think we got to call one time with 8s. I mean, this is a problem with calling pre-flop, especially if the range we assigned this guy pre-flop is accurate.
Call. Turn is a jack. Now he keeps betting. For 50 this time.
You guys have heard me talk about that. Like, I was all aboard folding on the turn. Now when he goes double the size of the previous bet, I am not folding, especially when he goes small again here on the turn. I think at some point, like a hand like aces, kings, queens, like I think these hands get greedy. I think a hand like jacks probably chooses a bigger size on the flop or slows down and like tries to trap here on this turn at some frequency. If the pre-flop range is accurate, to me, this feels a lot like ace king.
2 streets with ace king is probably unlikely. I think most
I disagree.
People at 1-2 will fire 1 bullet with ace high, then give up.
I think we have to look into the bet sizing here.
So I think at this point, I can let it go. But I'm not playing my best, and it's showing. I call. The river is a 9, and now he bets again for 125.
I snap it. I snap it. I snap it off.
This is just always a bigger pair than mine.
I disagree.
And I should have sniffed it out earlier. I might still be tilting from last session. Finally,
he didn't put you all in, like he saved $25 behind. I disagree. This is ace king, man. This is ace king.
I get a grip and fold. I reload back up to 300.
No, Does he show? No, he doesn't show. I'm gonna give this hand a 4. It's close between a 3 and a 4. The reason why I give it a 4 is I think in general, the fold on the river is solid against most players. I think he just misses some nuance here. I don't think this hand is like lighting money on fire, but the thought process reveals a couple gaps. The calling pre-flop, I think, could just easily be a fold if the range is accurate. I like the call on the flop. I think this is fine. I think like picking up on this like sizing tell, the fact they size small on both the flop and the turn, use double the previous size, and the fact they didn't put us all in on the river, I think like picking up on these things would make this hand like a 6 or a 7. But I don't think this is an egregious punt in any way, shape, or form. He's asking some good questions. His thought process is okay. I'm gonna give this a 4. Overall, Kevin is at an 11. And last but not least, Mr. Rampage. Let's do it.
25-50 game. I start with a $25,000 buy-in, and right off the bat, the $100 straddle is on, and I've got 8-7 of hearts on the button, raising it up to $400, and the straddler makes the call. Off to a flop of ace queen 9, all clubs. My opponent checks, and I start with a small bet of $300, probably just gonna be betting everything that I've got here on this board, and my opponent does make the call. When the turn comes the 9 of hearts, this is a card that I don't necessarily think he'll connect on too often, so when he checks again, I decide to amp up the aggression with a larger bet to 1,700 this time, and once again, he makes the call.
All right, so we found an overbet here on the turn. I like that he's not constrained by these pot limit sizes, but I want to think about our opponent's range, right? I want to think our opponent's range on this turn, and on these monotone boards, on these board pairing turns, what is our opponent's range when they call on the flop and they get to the turn? Well, they have a lot of weak shit, right? They just have some like Queen X, they got some Ace X, but they do have some strong stuff as well, right? They do have some traps. On these monotone boards, they have some flushes, especially like the king high, jack high flushes. They're also just going to have some 9x here, some trips as well. So I'm not sure I like the big size here. Again, my action is going to be determined by like asking these questions. What is my opponent's range and what happens if? I think my opponent's range is bifurcated into these some very weak hands and some very strong hands on the turn. I want to choose a small size, entice my opponent to raise the trapped flushes, maybe go small enough that he'll even raise the 9x, the trips some of the time, maybe not all the time, but some of the time. At least get the flushes to raise here on the turn and keep in the weak Queen X with a club, the weak Ace X as well. So I'd probably go small here on this turn.
So it's getting a little dicey, and the river 10 of hearts. I river a straight flush draw. Sadly, does not mean much now on the river. My opponent checks yet again, and do I really want to go for it?
Yes.
Triple barrel bluff with 8 high, the first hand of the night, and of course, right off the bat, we're getting involved. I'm trying to force him off of holding a queen, maybe a weak ace.
How much Queen X is there when we overbet the turn?
I throw 5,500 into the middle.
So the question I'm asking on this river is, first of all, what is my opponent's range? Like when we c-bet the flop and then overbet the turn, and then like if I did have value on this river, my opponent flipped over an ace, right? Like what size would I go on this river to try to get my opponent to call? Again, using that inverse question to allow us to distance the force from the trees.
And my opponent immediately is not super happy about it. He hems, he haws, he tries to ask me some questions to which I respond that I can't really show any cards. And ultimately, when I tell him that I can't show a card, I might have misspoke because he makes the call with Queen Jack.
Wow, I'm actually surprised there. I didn't think the Queen X would call on the turn to the overbet sizing. I'm gonna give this one a 4. I quibble with the sizing on the turn. I like that he attempted to go for the bluff on the river. Again, just like zooming in on what is our opponent's range and what happens if. These questions aren't really asked all that frequently, and I think these would allow us to have just a much more dialed thought process. I don't think this hand is a punt. The result makes it look like a punt, but I don't think the process overall was a punt. I think it was okay. Obviously, we'd be making some adjustments against this player in the future after seeing him call down light with this type of holding, but I don't think this hand was egregious in any way. I don't think it was exceptional. I don't think it was horrible. I would give this a 4, somewhere right in the middle. It was just fine.
With ace queen in the next spot with the $100 straddle on, there's a low jack raised to $500. I make the call here because 500 is a pretty big raise and I'm going to be passive. Small blind makes the call as well.
I'd at least like to be considering like who's in the blinds, like how often is this player opening. But yeah, I mean, I'm on board with just calling here.
And we're going 3 ways to a flop of king 10 8, 2 diamonds and a heart. Both of the players check it over to me here now, and I decided to start off with a small bet of 700. I've got a straight draw to the nuts essentially and decent removal from the best kings here.
I don't give a shit about this. I just be like, when the pre-flop raiser checks, like he's now capped, so we can probably just start bluffing here because we're pretty much in a heads-up pot at this point.
I'm bet 700, and the small blind is the only caller.
All right, so now this guy's uncapped.
The turn comes a low heart. My opponent checks, and I don't see much merit in blasting off with ace queen high, so I take my showdown value and check this back.
The reason why I said the small blind is uncapped is because he called next to act. He still has the pre-flop raiser behind him. Like, a very aware player is going to realize like the pre-flop raiser behind him is going to be giving up here, but a lot of players like will still trap even on like a wet dynamic board multi-way here because they're like, oh, I've got a player behind me, like I want to string him along like without like putting all the pieces together. So that's why I say like a lot of times they're uncapped. I don't mind the check back here on the turn.
The river now comes a queen, so we do hit second pair with the best kicker, but my opponent leads out for $2,000, and I just don't think my hand is any good at this point. As crazy it is with ace queen and second pair, I think my opponent could just have a weak top pair going really greedy for value. So I try to bluff raise the same opponent again by raising it up to $6,500. My opponent now...
I don't love this. The reason why I don't love this is because like we didn't even consider like what happens if I call and what happens if I raise. What is my opponent's range? Like all we really talked about is like he has like a weak top pair. Like what else could he have, right? Let's consider a few other options. Let's really put him on a range. Let's carry that range street to street. And the question I'd like to ask here again, the inverse question, like if we did a value in the spot, if we binked, you know, a hand like queen 10 on the river, like what size would we raise to? You get a hand like king X to call. Like I'd like to consider that as well.
Clearly does not love this spot. Looks like he did have value, and he's contemplating on making a hero call again. Man, people really don't like folding to me.
Yeah, we just saw this guy. Is this the same guy? Like I wouldn't be trying to bluff this guy ever in a million years. He just called an overbet on the turn, a monotone paired board with middle pair. This is not the guy to bluff, man.
And after some time, he does put in a call.
No shit.
Which is just a disaster, showing king 7. Oh my goodness.
All right, I'm gonna give this one a 3, which is a clear mistake, flawed reasoning. Like I don't think it's a massive, like egregious punt. I don't think it's great. I'm gonna give this a 3. I like the call pre-flop. I like the bet on the flop. I like the check back on the turn when the small blind calls. I just like the river is the big air here. Giving this one a 3.
This one with ace 3 of hearts. I'm in middle position where there are two players who limp in for $50. I'm having none of it, and I raise to 800. The cutoff makes the call, and everyone else ends up folding, so we're going to go heads up to a flop of jack 7 deuce 2 hearts. So we've got the flush draw. I check it over to my opponent, and he fires out $700, and now, you know, with my flush draw, actually not just the flush, it's the nut flush draw, I'm going for maximum pain and pressure. I check raise to $2,200 here immediately, trying to build up a pot.
I like checking. I like going for the check raise. I don't love the check raise size, and I would like to see him talk about what his opponent's range is when he stabs on this board.
And my opponent does make the call, which is pretty spicy now. The turn comes the king of clubs. Not the card I wanted to see, but it is a card that I'm happily going to barrel off into, and this time I fire...
Why? Like, let's talk about our opponent's range a little bit.
5,000 into the middle. We're sizing up, trying to target like a jack to fold now, or at least be a little uncomfortable.
There we go. Like, do we want a jack to fold now, though? Or do we want a jack to call and then get a jack to fold on the river? That's the question I'd be considering here.
And instead of folding, my opponent raises me to 11,000. What is going on here? There's a lot of raising going back and forth. But I'm not going anywhere. It's a very small min raise. It's here. I didn't come all the way here to New York City to not gamble. I call for 6,000 more.
What is our opponent's range, right? When they stab the flop, call the check raise, and then raise the turn, we look really strong. When our opponents fight fire with fire, they just have a really good hand, right? So I want to be thinking about what is their range.
And the river, 9 of hearts, bink.
I would love to see a lead here. I would love to see a lead because I think our opponent just always has a pretty strong hand here, like 2 pair of set, and I think those hands get checked back when the front door flush comes in. It doesn't mean they're going to fold, though, if we lead.
Sitting with the nut flush, I decide to lead jam.
Ooh, I like it.
$17,000 effective. And my opponent calls quickly. Wow. That's amazing. I didn't expect to get this much action quickly. He tells me he had a set.
Yep. I'm gonna give this one a 5. I really like the lead on the river. Was missing some of the ranging, was missing some of the questions asked, but I really like the lead on the river. Gonna give some bonus points for that. This is a 5. Rampage overall a 12. I think NorCal is going to be above Rampage, going to be slightly above Rampage on our rankings here. They were both tied. I'm gonna put NorCal above Rampage. All right, guys, these are the rankings, admittedly biased. Again, take them with 17 grain of salt. What do I know? Not much. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Maybe you learned a thing or two. If you want to work on that repeatable thought process, want to work on always asking the right questions, that's what our 5-day base camp is built for. Either way, hope this video turns you into the biggest boy possible. Thank you guys and have a gentle day.